information. Possession of data. I don't even know if you could say possession of facts, because how would we know they were facts? We just have possession of information that we would consider data, I suppose.
Well, if you remember, Matt, and I'm not sure that would be the greatest synonym that I could use, but I told you it would be a malformed question to ask me how I know something, right?
Okay, so I guess we could say, what is a possession of information?
Yeah, knowledge.
Or data.
Yeah, knowledge.
Okay, knowledge. Okay, so that just kind of seems like you've just defined knowledge now as a possession of information. Okay, so knowledge is a possession of information. Now, is this information random? Is it a fruit salad of information? Or does it kind of flow with some sort of sense and consistency?
I don't understand the question.
I think your brain is fruit salad, Matt.
Meaning, when you say information, or is this information in any way consistent and conformed, or is it just random information?
Better hope, Matt. You have a brain. You have a Jello mold for a head, I think.
I don't know what you mean by is it consistent, or it just seems like an object.
Meaning, do you just have information that says green, cement,
let's try and work out if we have the same concept.
Brick, leaves, or is it like some sort of propositions of information?
Well, let's just work out if we have the same concept of information. What do you take information to mean?
I would take information to mean an apple. Apples are red. Apples can be sweet. They can be tart. Certain things, certain propositions about certain things. That's kind of what I consider information.
Okay. So is your definition of knowledge going to be the same as mine, do you think, Matt?
It quite possibly could be.
Well, sorry, are you going to take knowledge
like
a primitive?
But if knowledge is a justified true belief, I guess the question would be, what would justify the truth of the information that we have?
Yeah, that's a malformed question.
Well, I don't think it would be if people define knowledge as justified true beliefs, and we possess information. Well, that's kind of what I've seen people define it. And I think it makes sense, because ultimately knowledge, things you believe, you also believe you know. So, I think it kind of makes sense, at least for me. So I think the question at this point is, this information that we possess, what is it that justifies the truth of this information that we possess within our mind, that we've accessed using our own brain and our body, our own ability to observe things?
Yeah, again, it's going to be a malformed question to ask what justifies it. To me, that's just unintelligible according to my concept.
Okay, so you're saying that there's nothing that really needs to justify it? It just is. The information just is?
Yeah, just have knowledge.
Okay. So this just is information that we possess. Then the question is, what do we do with this just is information?
What do you mean? What do we do with it?
I mean, I'm guessing at this point we're saying knowledge is just is information that we possess in our mind.
Yeah, well, I did sort of clarify that may be like not the best synonym to use, but I did say I take knowledge to be a primitive, so I'm not going to be able to detail it further.
Okay. Now, wouldn't it be fair to say at this point, when someone asked me about God's justified true beliefs or God's knowledge or whatever, if this is as far as we can get with what human knowledge means, wouldn't it be more reasonable to say that we couldn't probably even get as far with what God's knowledge is? Because this is as far as we've gotten with human knowledge.
I'm not sure, because when I asked you about knowledge, you said justified true belief, and now you seem to be using a different idea.
Well, I was kind of figuring out what your idea was. I don't have a problem with knowledge being defined as justified true belief, but I think that just gives the obvious question.
Yeah.
What is it with this information that just is, that justifies it as being true to consider it knowledge? Yeah. And then at that point, if this true knowledge that we possess, what is it within this true knowledge that we possess, these true propositions or whatever about certain things that can lead us to having wisdom based on this knowledge? Because it seems like you could have a lot of knowledge, but you can't be able to process it in any way that leads to you being wise with this knowledge that you have.
I don't see why that's relevant.
What? Will you stop answering their fucking questions? They're every time they ask a question, they're presupposing the Christian God exists. So until they can tell you how they fucking know things without the Christian God, don't answer their questions.
Yeah, but it's going to be asking me how I know things. It's just going to be a malformed question. That's what I've been saying for the last.
How do you know that? Did you reason that? How do you know your reasoning is wrong?
You're just asking me a malformed question again.
How do you know that?
You're asking me another malformed question.
How do you know that?
Again, it's malformed. Your skepticism won't work.
You see how it leads into an infinite regression?
Did you reason that it's a malformed question?
It's just the same.
Did I reason it's a malformed question? I'm just reporting it's a malformed question.
Did you infer it? Is there an inference going on there?
What do you mean by that?
Time to trim the conceptual landscape.
By inference, you mean conclusion?
I mean, yeah, what do you mean by that?
I would just like to point out that godless here is actually being more true to the presuppositional approach. Because the presuppositional approach asks, how do you know that? And earlier, you remember me saying I was willing to come off of the presuppositional approach and just agree that Jay has perfect cognitive faculties to be able to reason. But then when we get into this discussing and defining what knowledge is, it seems that Jay has kind of undermined our whole reason to presuppose that his cognitive faculties were reasonable, because we've gotten stuck just simply on what knowledge is. So godless goes back to how do you know that? How do you know that? And I think what godless is actually doing is more correctly representing the presuppositional approach is, if the atheist is willing to go up against the Christian, then the Christian is justified in asking the atheist, when the atheist makes a critique of the Christian worldview, how do you know that?
Well, under your conception, apparently, how do you know that's a perfectly formed question, right?
I love how my 8-year-old is capable of performing the philosophy I find in this room right now.
How do you know that?
How do you know that, Judy?
See, I think the problem is we get bogged down into these conversations about what is knowledge, what is beliefs, what is this, that, what is that. And then what the atheists often do is try to get the Christian to explain how God has knowledge. And then when the Christian just simply says, oh, I don't know how God, I don't know how this works, God is wholly other, then they start criticizing the Christian. But then the Christians start saying, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, then how do you know the difference between the knowledge of a lower ape or a dog versus the difference between a human? Things that we could literally dissect and put into and observe in nature, and even dissect their brains and take them apart, and we still can't answer those questions. So if we still can't answer those questions on beings that are contingent upon material that rots away and dies and is inconsistent, then how in the world would we, who are inconsistent ourselves, be able to judge and decipher what the knowledge of God is. And that's the whole problem here.
Yeah, well, the problem for you is, Matt, and your conception of knowledge being a justified true belief. And then when I ask you if God has justified true beliefs, and you tell me you don't even know if he has justified true beliefs. Right, so you don't even know if
Well,
God has
that
knowledge.
would be a good answer, right?
Well, so you don't know God has knowledge. I mean, you can concede that. That's fine.
And that would be a good answer, too. I don't know how God... There's a Bible passage that talks about who knows the thoughts or the mind of God, who can comprehend. So it wouldn't be that I would be saying something unbiblical. I would just be honest that I don't know.
Yeah, that's
how
fine.
it works.
That's fine. If you don't know, you don't know.
Well, wait a minute. You can't be a precept and be honest on that. You got to pick one or.
So my only option at this point is to basically say, look, there has to be something outside of my limited, flawed understanding and faultiness that I can put my trust into, that not only can ensure that they can reveal certain truths to me, but also ensure that I can correctly process it, even though my own faculties are limited. And in the Christian worldview, that's why we believe that's God. That's why we believe God is the foundation.
Mm.
In the atheist worldview, I think the atheist just said, well, what does the atheist have that they can appeal to?
Yeah, we have knowledge.
Okay, you have knowledge, which comes from your own mind.
It comes from my own mind? I mean, that's kind of an odd question.
Yeah, and it's dependent upon property, things that are contingent, that exist contingently, material things that break down and decay and fall apart that aren't even consistent, right?
I don't hold that view that there's no...
One of the things I learned from Rene Descartes, I didn't read Rene Descartes, but a year or so back, I listened to a series of lectures from a philosopher who went into pretty good detail on Rene Descartes and talked about his meditation 1, his meditation 2, his meditation 3, and how he first doubts everything, then he builds upon that, gets to the Cartesian scenario, the demon deceiving him, then he has to overcome that by saying there has to be something else that is good, worthy of worship, things of that nature, that would ensure that I'm not being deceived. And he starts getting to God. Then he starts saying, okay, well, how is my mind conceiving of something like this in my own limitations? Then he comes up with this strange, interesting formula, and I still can't really understand. I need to go back and actually write it down. This philosopher writes it down in like some sort of mathematical formula where Descartes apparently comes up with some system to decide what is actually more real and what isn't. And based on this system, Descartes reasons that God is actually the most real. And one of the reasons how he got to that is the idea that every idea that is represented by an object, that object itself is contingent on things that fade away, that decay and die. So God, by definition, could not be contingent on physical things. He could not. That would not be dependent on how God exists. So he wouldn't need to be contingent on that. So ultimately, he would be, according to Descartes, the most real in reality, because he wasn't contingent on these physical things that die and decay and fall apart. So Descartes ultimately, with this formula he come up with, reasoned that God must exist, and that's what they call the imprint argument or the trademark argument. It's a really interesting way he gets to this, but I think he makes some sense in certain things, because if we're relying on receiving knowledge from things that are temporary, things that change and things that decay, and that's all we have based on our own mind, this temporary, our own brain, our own body that is contingent as well, then we could never really know anything. So we have to have some sort of outside source, and Rene Descartes' rescue was there had to be a God. And that's kind of how he kind of came to that. And I think that's some pretty interesting philosophy. A lot of people have criticized it, and there's been papers written to criticize it. But I do think it's an interesting thing, and I think he makes some good points there. So I'd recommend, if anyone's interested, you can find those videos, listen to those lectures, because it's pretty fascinating.
Cool. So can we wrap that up then, Matt? Are we finishing on the note that you don't even know if God has any knowledge?
Yeah, I would say that I would just have to say I'm ignorant on being able to talk about God's knowledge, because I'm a limited being myself who's dependent.
Okay. I think Godless seemed a bit upset that one trick failed. One trick pony.
I think she opened another room.
That's so funny.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, Matt beat everybody.
I think there's going to be an argument that God and subsequently humans are brain that. I haven't formalized it yet, but I think there could be an argument.
I mean,
based on the scripture that he read to you, or he didn't read it to you, Jay, but I presume that's where you were going.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if you can make an argument that God is a brain in a vat, but I guess you can make an argument that he may not know he's a brain in a vat. Or not.
No, I actually think, based off of what the Christian you're talking to agrees upon, well, this is going to be redundant, but if you get him to sign off on some statements beforehand, I think you can make a reasonable inference to that. And these statements that I'm thinking of are are statements that I think is consistent with what I've heard Christian.
I mean, it seems a bit odd that he was appealing to Revelation, but doesn't even know if God knows anything. It's kind of weird.
Jack, didn't you talk to that pastor guy that said, his name was Pastor, that said that the Trinity could occupy different spatial locations without having a body?
Marquise, whatever his name.
Keys, yeah. Like that would be like one of the first statements that I'm thinking of, right? If does God have a body or
He
not?
said that you could have movement without a body.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think he even used water as an example.
Oh my god.
What's wrong with saying you can have movement without a body?
I don't understand the concept, at least.
Well, light moves. Light isn't physical. What's the problem there? Gravity can move, and it doesn't have like
Gravity
a physical.
moves?
Sure. Yeah, gravitational waves.
I think
But
a better way to phrase
light
it is,
specifically,
what does it mean? I think a better way to phrase it is, what does it mean for something to move if it has no physical composition, or it isn't physical? You think that's a better way of phrasing it, Jack?
Sorry, say that again.
That instead of just because this guy just asked, well, light moves, but presumably doesn't have a body. Don't you think a better way to phrase it is, how can you have movement without physical composition?
You could say it that way.
Light is still understood as a physical phenomenon.
This guy, after all we've been through, Arianis?
Oh, is Jay not JJ? I think this was JJ's room. It looks.
Church doesn't have some music. The Catholics changed that. Hosanna was one of my favorite songs, and they changed it, and it's super dumb now. I go to the Catholic church, and I sit in on a
Because they play
service,
guitars.
and they changed it. What
You talking about
happened to my
the new
Hosanna?
translation?
What happened to Hosanna? My version of Hosanna. I had to go on YouTube.
Oh,
and look up
Hosanna, don't you cry for me.
Yeah.
Come to Alabama.
I had to go look up Hosanna in the highest old version, traditional version, to find it. This is bullshit. They're changing my church songs. I don't like it. I want the hits.
I don't like it. Play the hits. I'm Darth
Hey, Gigi.
You know, I made that post yesterday, and I put your argument in it on Facebook, in that Facebook group I was telling you that had like over 100,000 members. I got this back channel message on Messenger from this guy by the name of John O'Neill, and he said, "Oh, I just listened to Gigi just tear you apart, rip you to shreds," and I was like, what conversation was that? And he's the same guy who's a big fan of Haiti as well. He said, Gigi just ripped you to shreds. And I said, I don't even remember having a conversation with Gigi in which she would have ripped me to shreds. I don't think you were even listening. And he's talking about Gigi and how smart she was or something like that. And this guy falls at the feet of Matt Dillahunty and worships him. So what I did was I posted the YouTube video that Gigi has up introducing her channel. And the first thing you have on there is a picture of Gigi and Matt Dillahunty with a red nose and a clown thing. And I said, oh, okay, well, what do you think about this? Because she thinks Matt Dillahunty's a clown. And
He is a clown.
yeah, and I haven't received any message yet from him, but I imagine he's probably trying to process it to figure out what to say at this point.
He's a clown.
I agree.
He's done some good things, but he's done a lot of bad.
Yeah, is one of the good things he does hanging up on everybody who disagrees with him? Because, yeah, he does a really good thing.
I saw one video where this young guy came on there one time and just really, I don't know how old the guy was, sounded like he was a teenager, and just really made him look bad. And he just, and then he just hung up on him and just talked about how he didn't even bother engaging with him. He just said he was dishonest. And I wish I still had saved that, but it just made him look like he's completely inept based on the way he acted there. And I think for in most cases, if he were in a long conversation with someone who knew what they were talking about, it would become clear pretty quickly that he's pretty bad.
I mean, he is an atheist, so, like, you know.
That's true. Yeah. So he's kind of behind the eight ball.
Yeah. He's an atheist.
Wow, nice 8th grade schoolyard bullying, Mac. Well, she does have cooties. I mean,
oh, Ryan, you're a king, you know?
I'm a queen.
But just remember, if the atheist complains that being a schoolyard bully is immoral, the atheist can always be refuted by the schoolyard bully's retort, says who.
Yeah, Matt, the video I sent you, it's really old, but it's like one of the first videos that made me think it separated me from the other atheists, because after I watched those, I would get back on Pal Talk and like the atheists in the video get like their asses kicked. So I get on Pal Talk and like question the atheists on there, and they just had such poor responses. But Yeah, Eric Hovind and Cy Ten, let's put it really simply. And they're not charitable. You can't be charitable to atheists at all.
Well, that's
Why?
all
Oh,
my
no.
presuppositional approach.
Hey, Brenda, sorry about getting mod abused yesterday. And Matt, you can watch YouTube videos on increased speed. Like, if you click the 3 dots, I put mine on like 1.25 because it's not,
Okay.
then you can watch a lot more in less time.
And that one was Cy 10. The Cy 10.
Yeah, it's
dude.
Cy 10 and Eric Hovind on a podcast with like Aaron Law. And Aaron Law it's so funny in part 2. I think it's part 2. Aaron Law gets so upset because he's getting his ass kicked that he's screaming so loud that his mic is cutting in and out. And Cy 10's like, how do you know your reasoning is rebel? While Eric Hovind is laughing. It's hilarious.
Cool, I'll check it out. The presuppositional approach.
It's too bad he had to like commit adultery and self-own his entire Christian ministry.
Yeah, I knew something happened. He just disappeared, and I knew it had something to do with his sin that he had did, but I didn't know it was adultery. But I kind of figured it might have had something to do with that, or something.
Hey Matt, I'm sharing something to the chat that I thought might work as a good profile picture for you.
Okay.
Brenda, I see the flat earthers made their way over at Clubhouse.
I joined a flat Earth clubhouse, but there was no one there. Like, it's pretty dead so far. But the Asylum is the one that the flat Earthers really like to gather into Discord server. But it keeps getting nuked because they keep going into like election stuff, COVID stuff, Jew stuff. I know that Rooster is okay with that stuff because he's Orthodox and it's the most anti-Semitic sect of Christianity, but most of the internet doesn't like that.
Most of the internet sucks.
No.
That is true, right? Most of the internet does suck. It's stupid, bad jokes.
But you deny everything else he said, right? I mean, I didn't hear you say, "Oh no, we're pro-Jewish."
I'm pro-Jewish. I'm an evangelical.
Talking to Rooster.
Oh.
Gee. Rooster, are you pro-Jew, pro-Semitic? Are you pro everything good?
Were those all synonyms in your mind?
Do you have any beliefs that I'd be like, wow, you're a piece of shit? Just tell them to me. Give me all of them. Come on. It's okay. Are you anti-vax? He's pleading the fifth.
Typical Catholic.
What do you want to do to gays? Burned alive or imprisoned? Which one?
Maybe he's like me and believes the Democrats stole it.
I think every election is
That's hilarious, man.
was set up to be stolen long before I was.
You don't actually believe that, do you, Matt?
Why would he say it if he didn't believe it?
Do I believe it 100%? No, but I think the evidence is very, very strong.
What's the evidence?
Very strong. Okay.
I think the election was stolen.
They found ballots at the bottom of the oceans, on top of the tallest mountains, with my name.
They found them in the forest.
Okay. Oh, one New Jersey mailman was convicted yesterday of felony fraud for stealing my ballot.
My ballot.
Do you live in the U.S., Brenna?
I was the president of the United States for 4 years. Okay.
I asked if you live in the U.S., Brenna.
Yeah, I live in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Minnesota? Yeah.
Isn't that where like we have a lot of you have a lot of Scandinavians?
I guess. Yes.
Brenda is white. Like, just, it's okay.
Yes. I'm very white. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
What? Why would you?
Well, I thought that was part of the conspiracy, so I'm just assuring the conspiratard that Brenda is white, so we don't have to.
Oh, the Mary worshipping pagan.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because like I find that Orthodox tend to be really anti-Semitic and really like racially nationalistic. They're like the like Eastern Europeans and Russians tend to be very like ethno-nationalist, like compared to they're almost like Germans from the 1930s. Like it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, you're breaking up, Haiti.
Which is why it was very rich when Russian propagandists were saying that there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well...
Like plank out of your eye, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a pretty good approach to float that and say, hey, there's neo-Nazis, we're trying to get rid of them, because the left is very against that. So then they just had to say, no, we don't believe you, or of course they might try evidence, but the Russians probably wouldn't be concerned with that. But it would be a hard pill to swallow to start arguing against Russians invading Ukraine based on trying to get rid of neo-Nazis and try to say that that was somehow immoral because we hate neo-Nazis so bad. So it's a pretty good approach for the Russians, even if it is a lie. It's a good approach.
Do you support the Russians invading the Ukraine, Matt?
I neither support or not support.
What?
I'm actually completely neutral on the topic.
Brenda, I gotta stop you. The Ukraine is a Russian word for that territory. Like it's a Russian phrase. No, I'm serious, right? They call it the Ukraine because it's like the Ukrainian province of Russia or whatever. Like it's Ukraine.
I heard it meant like borderland. Is
Ukraine. Isn't that how they say it? Ukrainia?
I don't know. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm just curious about what other bizarre beliefs Matt has.
Wait, I can say what they always say on Clubhouse. You have to be very careful about language. Shut up, Mac. Shut up. There you go. Now you're fucking mute.
You have been server muted.
That guy's really annoying.
Oh, you haven't seen the half of it.
Oh yeah,
I would stop complaining if I were you.
We
No, I'm not
autism.
complaining. I'm just informing the room that you are annoying.
Fair.
I'll say
fair.
to say I'm completely neutral on it might not be true, but I do lean towards the possible idea that what we're seeing and the media is reporting about the war in Ukraine isn't exactly the truth. Yeah. So there could be some sort of other reason that the Russians seem to be so intent on invading them. Now, according to them, it's, the neo-Nazis, something of that nature. But honestly, I haven't paid attention to it enough in the last few months to even know. But that was kind of the idea that was promoted earlier. But I also, because of my extreme skepticism for the media, I think that there's something that the media is probably intentionally leaving out that we.
Yeah, I don't think you're skeptical. I think you're dismissive. I think there's a difference.
That's a new response to atheists, Matt. I don't think you're skeptical. I think you're dismissive.
I think that's based. I think
Yeah, that's actually a good. I may start using that. You're not skeptical.
I was
you're
serious.
just dismissive of.
Well, you're dismissive about God.
Matt, the point is, why are you neutral about a country getting invaded? I don't understand.
I don't necessarily say I'm neutral. I'm saying I could be persuaded either way.
Okay.
So if someone were to present me evidence,
the definition of neutrality. Virtually.
If someone were to present me evidence that would go one way versus the other, I would have no reason to say, no, that's not evidence. I reject that because I'm completely, I don't have a
I think he's saying he's not committed to neutrality.
Yeah, maybe
right?
that's
like he's
it,
not doing the that thing where you're like, I will remain neutral no matter.
Also, Matt says he might change to saying something like, "You're just dismissive of God. You don't reject." That's been the case the whole time. It wouldn't be anything different than what you've done in the past, or others like you.
Well, instead of just saying you're biased, I just say you're just.
Well, the idea is that being dismissive is irrational. You're just dismissing for non-rational reasons. But being
Brenda,
skeptical,
you don't have any
would be being.
You don't have any
What the
grounding.
fuck is wrong with you?
So why should we listen to you?
He's suffering from some mental illness.
Yeah. Okay. Then, while being skeptical, you would be skeptical for reasons.
Could you give Matt some reasons he should support Ukraine?
Support Ukraine.
Isn't that what you're like to do?
They're an independent country, and invading an independent country is generally frowned upon, right?
I heard that like the some of the areas in there, like Donetsk or whatever, were voting to join Russia. Is that?
Well, they already did. It's the whole the two members of the Donbass region.
Yeah, and then I heard there's like kind of like a military accepted doctrine that like if you're gonna invade a place, you shell it with artillery for some like 72 hours straight, and that Ukraine had been shelling those areas, but never for 72 hours straight, and then they did, which was kind of like an indication that they were gonna go in with their military, and that was like part of the reason that Russia went into Ukraine. I don't know if that's true, but. So I don't know. It seems like
a little more complicated.
That seems like a justified reason potentially. They're like, hey, these people are, wanting to be one with Russia, and you're about to.
There are reasons. There are reasons to support Ukraine. There are reasons, and I mean good reasons.
There are many reasons. Okay.
There are good reasons to support, at least in part, what Russia did too, but. There's even reasons to support what the U.S. has done for the last 30 years in Ukraine, and actually longer than that, to be honest.
Stop.
So it's a very complicated discussion to have. I think Matt is actually wise in withholding judgments because he doesn't know shit about it. A rare instance.
Libtard.
Rooster, did the Holocaust happen? That's something that Orthodox tend to be iffy on. He dodges the question.
Oh, sorry, my mic.
So what's?
Wait, Rooster, are you a Holocaust denier?
I don't debate the Holocaust as an historical.
That's not an answer to the question.
Well, it is.
Why not?
It is kind of an answer.
I'm not looking to debate you, Rooster. I'm just wanting
Rooster.
to know whether or not you hold to
Then
this.
why do you care?
Why I care? Because I'm
Yeah.
curious. Sounds like you're. Well, I don't know, really.
I just find it very curious. Catholics and Orthodox, especially traditionalist oriented,
I don't
tend to
see
be
that.
really iffy on
I don't really
Jews.
see that relevance, but I want to know if Rooster actually.
Why would that
holds
be?
to the. Rooster, is
Why
it the
would
case
that
that you?
be? Because they tend to
Rooster, is it
espouse
the case that you deny the Holocaust? Like, I'm not looking to debate you, so I'm not going to follow this up with anything. But I'm asking you whether or not you believe the Holocaust happened.
I think that we should just stop taking this historical narrative as a thought-terminating cliche that doesn't let us.
You don't believe it happened. So.
Yeah, see, like this, for example, anytime I'm here, right, and there's certain people, their thoughts are terminated. They can't think. All they can on this one thing that I've never even, said, and I've said hundreds of times. I don't debate it, but their thoughts.
Rooster, just tell us how many Gorillion was it?
How many Gorillion was what? Did I say Gorillion on here? Why do you say Gorillion?
Why is it a thought-stopping cliche to say that a historical event happened and have no follow-up about
the
whatsoever?
thought-terminating cliche aspect of it is, for example, like some people on here will say, "Hey, don't talk to Rooster about anything because there's this theory that he's a Holocaust denier." So that their thoughts, they won't. It's been established. They won't interact with reality. See, that's what I'm saying. Like someone like you. I've never said it. I said I don't debate it, but that's irrelevant because your thoughts have just been terminated.
I'm not saying. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk to you for any reason, but it's just been established that you are espousing the same rhetoric as a Holocaust denier by calling the Holocaust a thought-stopping cliche, saying you don't debate it. Instead of just saying it happened. No, it didn't happen.
So part of the Holocaust narrative isn't only that you want someone to say X number of people died by Y means. You also are saying there's a whole set of entailments that's like, if you say it's a thought-terminating cliche, that's the same as denying it happened. So by that,
I believe that God killed the whole world in a flood. Okay, I'm okay with genocide. Okay, like God killed the whole world in a flood. So like, just say what if you believe it happened or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't debate it as a historical event. It's just not my, it's not my thing. If X happened, Y happened, or Z happened, it doesn't change how I think we should.
Yeah, but which do you think happened? X, Y, or Z?
I just find it interesting that Catholics and Orthodox tend to have an odd relationship with the whole Jewish, stuff. They tend to end up Jewish.
Normally, I would say this is entrapment. But Rooster, he's made an initial showing that at least you're not refuting it at all, and it's kind of concerning.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean when you say, like, normally I would call this entrapment, but because it's this subject, I have a different opinion on, like, the way that's
you're being asked
to go about. What is your different opinion?
Do you believe that the mainstream narrative about the Holocaust?
I find it curious that Catholics, traditionalist Catholics, and Jews. And
why do you think that would?
I don't know. I'm sure you could elucidate.
I don't even care for him to comment to that. I mean, just answer a direct question.
Well, answer my direct question. Why would they have?
Which one?
I don't know.
I don't know. There's your answer. There's your answer. Do you believe that the Holocaust happened, Rooster? Not do you want to debate about it. Just do you believe it happened?
Are you saying like a justified true belief?
Oh my God! We will not even debate this.
Just
I just want to know.
Yeah, we're not saying that. We're saying belief, right? So
Like
a belief is
a
a
true belief?
positive attitude towards the proposition. Do you have a positive attitude towards this proposition?
What's the
That the Holocaust happened?
what do you mean by the Holocaust?
That under the Nazi regime, millions of people were killed
Yeah.
Millions of people were killed. Yeah, it was a world war.
in camps.
Yeah, in concentration camps and like the entirety.
I'll say murdered.
The entirety of the historical event, I'm sure you're familiar with.
I'm getting a lot of different answers onto what you're asking me to ascend.
Well, you said you already had a concept of the historical event, so I'm not sure why you're asking. But I could encompass it in one term, or not one term, like in one sentence or something like that, if that's like what you desire. No, wait, I'm asking what you want to.
I
think you have a concept already.
Historical event,
I said that.
So I don't. It's not really something.
So you already have a
debate.
concept. According to the concept that you're familiar with, in the colloquial sense, do you think it happened, or do you think it not happened?
Well, with the concept I'm familiar with, I think it's a thought-terminating cliche that we need to.
That's not an answer. Did it
I
happen?
believe that at least 9 million people.
Did it happen or did it not happen?
Under the Nazi regime.
That people died under the Nazi regime?
No, died.
So, like,
Your colloquial understanding. Your colloquial understanding of.
I wouldn't have any problem with that. I wouldn't have any problem if it was just the debate concept. But me screaming and fucking blowing, dragging up all that fucking drama again?
That understanding.
You expect me to believe that you don't know that it's an issue. You don't have any just. You're complete. You're complete.
I'm not sure.
Gaslighter. You don't have any
saying different things about what it is.
Okay, so just listen to me. Do you think that the concept that you have of the Holocaust happened?
Yeah, the concept I have is that there's this historical narrative that people give, and it's a thought-terminating cliche, and I don't like that aspect.
So that's not an answer. Do you think that happened?
I think what happened?
We need Darth Dawkins in here. Answer the question.
This is sick. I've got to say,
can you just answer my question?
I do think this is sick. I agree. It's sick to start a room about debating philosophy and then sit there the whole time like interrogating one person about something he says he doesn't even debate.
You just realize it's Rooster that I have blocked. That's the one person I have blocked.
Oh, okay. Is that because he denies the Holocaust, JJ?
I'm gonna block you back.
It's because he's a thought-terminating person.
I'm gonna block you back because, like, I was in this room
I'll
before
just call him a
you wouldn't have been able
cliche.
Then you
I
wouldn't
love
have been
when he
able to join.
He talks about thought-terminating cliches, and he's like saying he's gonna block people.
Well, because he said he blocked me. That's
not blocking
the
you.
goose and the gander.
Interesting. I find it interesting that Catholics and traditional Orthodox all tend to have weird conspiratorial beliefs about Jews.
Yeah, to make it legal, Mac, I've got to put this out there, Rooster. I'm tired. This is an opportunity, if you would like a final opportunity, to affirm that the Holocaust happened and that 9 to 12 million people died.
Or that it didn't happen, and just be honest about it.
Then that will be it, and I'll leave it at that. And when people ask me, is Rooster an anti-Semite, I will not say yes or no. I'll say, I said, I gave him an opportunity to say simply that it happened, and he didn't take that. So whatever you take from that.
I do have a question on that. If someone said, like, yeah, I looked into this history, I don't think this happened, you would say they're an anti-Semite. So there's something tied up in the Jewish identity of saying,
Holocaust. I would think that for spiritual.
That's not true, right? What we would say is that they don't believe that it happened. Not that they're an anti-Semite necessarily.
Well, I know,
I would, but given the evidence, given the weight of the evidence.
I would ask, there's, I think scholars say that we don't know, exactly the number, but that we have a basic understanding of the number. And if yours was way off, then I would say, yeah, he doesn't.
I haven't done research on the number.
Oh, so then
But you had looked into
So
it.
then why wouldn't you just accept the historical consensus, given that you have
well,
ignorance?
why doesn't everyone in here accept the historical consensus that
I do.
Historical consensus that there is a God? Is there
like
historical
most people in
consensus that there is a
history,
God?
most people in
Oh my
history
God.
have been like, hey,
Before we
there's a
move,
God.
before we move on to that, Ryan gave you an opportunity to either affirm or deny.
Yeah,
the position
I would
that
like
the
to give
Holocaust
everyone
happened.
here an opportunity.
Yeah, you can do that
Shall we
afterwards, right?
all?
You can
Shall
do
we
that.
all
You can do that
stop letting
afterwards,
this be
Rooster.
a thought terminating cliche for us? Shall
Okay,
we all do
so
that?
I think it's pretty evident that Rooster actually is not taking the opportunity to clarify his position. And when someone asks me, "Is Rooster Holocaust?" I would say he was given ample opportunity to affirm that he's not a Holocaust denier, or to affirm that he's not a Holocaust denier.
Will you tell him what I
And
did?
he did not take that opportunity.
Avail himself of the opportunity. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, deny
we
it.
offered not to argue with him. You know, we didn't want to make fun of you for. We just wanted to hear what you believe. If you believe the mainstream narrative, and
Why are you asking
So
that?
that's fair. Now we can move on to some other topic. Now that we know.
We're asking because I find it curious that Catholics and traditional Orthodox have fringe views about Jews.
Oh, that's not what I'm
And
asking.
you are
That's not
validating.
all what
You
I'm
are
asking. That's not what
validating.
you're
Well,
saying.
it's why I'm asking. It's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
And
but you said
and
we.
you are
That's not what I'm
validating.
asking. So
Okay, well, maybe some of us.
you said something along the lines, Rooster, of like the historical consensus is that there is a God. What do you mean exactly?
Most people throughout history have said that God or
That's
gods.
not the historical consensus, right? Most people throughout history, I don't know if this is true, but like if everyone believed up until like the new millennia that the Earth was flat, would then that be that sorry, I'm not finished. Would then that be that the historical consensus is that the Earth is flat?
No, so what I'm saying is
Exactly.
a lot of people in here do not accept consensus on things, and they aren't,
Such as?
berated about it. Like,
Such as?
You're only being
Such as?
berated because you're dodging the question. You're only
Sorry,
being
such as,
berated for
Rooster?
that reason.
Such as? Rooster? Such as?
Like that, there's like most people throughout history.
Okay, so your
believe
claim
that.
now,
So there's
so
sort
your
of a
claim,
consensus.
sorry, so your claim now is that the historical consensus is that there is a God. Can you find me that historical consensus? Like, where have you read this?
So if we're saying, like you're asking about, you want proof of things. What if I asked something like that about the Holocaust?
I don't want
like you
proof of
said,
anything.
someone was
Right, I'm
saying
asking-
9 million people died. If I was like, oh, what's
Oh no, I'm asking how did you consider, or how did you conclude? I mean, that the historical consensus is that there is a God. I don't think that's true.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, it's not that I deny it, but I'm skeptical of the claim. So, what do you mean when you say historical consensus? Let's start there.
It just seems, well, anyway, the reason I said that is just people saying, hey, this is a consensus of some group, and you're like, that means you have to accept it. I mean,
no, you don't have
really.
to. Of course not. You don't have to. Of course. So, do you think it's the historical consensus that there is a God?
I think most people in history have believed in a God or God.
Yeah, that's just an answer to a different question.
The consensus
that's just an answer to a different question. Do you believe that the historical consensus?
I don't understand what you're asking.
Oh, I'm using your terminology, right? You gave me the terminology, and I'm reapplying the terminology back to you. I don't know what historical consensus means, to be honest, right?
Okay. You should ask the people then what they're talking about when they talk about it.
Yeah, I did, but you didn't want to answer. But you started off by saying historical consensus. So what is it that you mean when you say historical consensus?
I was just saying it because they had said.
Sorry, what?
I was just saying that because they had said historical consensus about the Holocaust.
Oh, okay. So you don't know what you were saying.
I was being a little facetious.
Got him.
yesterday.
Yeah, how did he insult you yesterday?
He called me an idiot.
Okay, then I'll hold him accountable for that if I was present for that, Mr. D. So I'm saying, is your standard as Christians? Right? I don't think so. Anyways, if someone wants to present the verse
man, because
and the
I already know.
citation, let's go to the verse.
And you're scared.
Let's
Just
go to
leave.
the verse. Yeah, TK, let's go to the verse that he's
Yo,
citing.
just run.
Let's go to the translation. I have nothing to run from. Like, present the evidence, we'll evaluate it.
Yeah, I hold to the position that it's irrelevant how many people died to how we should proceed and act.
I don't think I've mentioned normativity at all. Hey, Ryan, could you let Ray up? I'm being back channeled.
I just find it interesting that as a Catholic and traditional Orthodox, you have like non-mainstream anti-Semitic views, and it's just very curious that you validated my kind of experience yet again.
I don't think you validated his experience, right? He was given ample. What we can say is that he was given ample opportunity to deny that he's a Holocaust denier, yet he did not execute on that opportunity.
Or even just not even with the accusation. I mean, my exact words were to affirm that the Holocaust happened. I don't want to.
I don't need you to affirm. Are you a Holocaust presuppositionalist?
Presuppositionalists.
Yeah, like, do you have any concept in your mind that maybe the narrative that you believe could not be true? Or are you saying like it has to be true
so the question you asked is
the thing it's.
I think the question you ask is like leading to some other answer that you actually wanted. So you asked, do I have any concept in my mind that is leading to something, blah, 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 right? But sure, I have any concept in my mind that is leading to something. Like, that's not going to be like
what?
Incriminating anyway.
What? What? So, like, in a discussion, like, are you presupposing for certain that the Holocaust happened, and there's no other way to understand?
No, I'm not presupposing
any
the
of the
Holocaust
related. Okay, so you have like some evidence or something that convinced you of it.
Oh, I'm an epistemological nihilist, so I don't think that there can be knowledge.
Oh, okay. So we can't really know, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that about almost any proposition. Well, yeah, almost any proposition.
Then my answer would be, well, I don't know that I can tell you I know anything based on your ideas of knowledge.
But we know you don't have that view, so you're being dishonest.
I don't think you can tell me anything based on your idea of knowledge. What do you take knowledge to be, Rooster?
It's fine. Well, I say knowledge can't really be defined. It's sort of a primitive, but you could describe it as a having consciousness.
Having consciousness of something. If it's a
so, like if I see a tree, like I have some knowledge of the tree, right? If I know what kind of tree it is, I might know a little more. If I study it, if I take some of its bark, do some tests or whatever.
If it's a primitive, can you provide some synonyms? Maybe I understand the concept.
Well, yeah, having consciousness of something. Is that too many words? Is that the problem?
Well, that wouldn't be a synonym, but
that's almost like a definition.
That would actually be a definition, which is kind of contradictory, given that you said that it can't be defined.
Yeah, I don't think it can be really defined, but that kind of gives you somewhat of a sense.
It can't be really defined, but it can be falsely defined.
Yeah, my answer to that good faith question is no. I don't think you are speaking English.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you're an epistemological nihilist, like why should I say anything to you? You don't even think anything means anything.
That's not true. I have thoughts, right? Epistemological nihilist doesn't exclude thoughts.
How do you know
So
you?
it's not. Wait, you said that I don't think that anything means anything, and I said I can have thoughts, and I can think that a lot of things mean a lot of things. That is not excluded from epistemological nihilism.
Oh, okay.
Just to summarize the conversation and make sure I understand where we're at, Rooster, are you saying that the evidence required to support the proposition that autocratic fascist regimes in the 1940s area committed a genocide that was racially motivated, like many humans have done and has been documented about 80 years ago, it requires the same amount of evidence as saying 2,000 years ago or in 0 AD, some type of human resurrected from the dead, and that's also documented. And the conclusions of that are ontological truths about the entire universe.
I'm not really sure what that means, what you're asking. Like, is the level of evidence the same?
I'm just asking, is that the state of the conversation? But yeah, are you asking for is the level of evidence the same?
I'm not really sure what that would mean.
So I think epistemic nihilism is interesting, but I'd say I'm more epistemic fallibilism. So you can rationally hold beliefs even though you know they can't be like concluded or justified in my worldview. 100% concluded or justified, whatever that means.
So you're saying maybe the Holocaust didn't happen, you just believe.
Yeah, with a very high probability.
Okay.
And I have to assign a much, much, much lesser probability to Jesus Christ resurrecting from the dead for the sake of God who created the entire universe.
Okay.
Would you say that's a logical place for me to be at?
I'm not sure about all of it, but I think it's logical for you to say maybe.
I think that's a little reductive of what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Rooster is a good faith actor here.
I'll be good faith with people who are good faith, but when they're going to demonstrate a lack of good faith, then, there's no reason to do it. Because I've said what I've said about the Holocaust plenty of times. I said I don't debate it as a historical event.
Not to me, you haven't.
Right, but this isn't only about you, right? This is no holds barred atheist versus theist day 11. I've probably said it on day 1 through 10 in the same,
Well, you can say to people, and I'm totally a fan of you get as good as you give, but in this case, I asked you not an insulting question. I just asked you, do you affirm the Holocaust? And you didn't want to answer the question. I didn't say, are you a Holocaust denier? Prove that you're not a Holocaust denier. You're just not giving. You're using that as an
Yeah, so what do you mean when you say the Holocaust?
I mean the thing that we were all taught about in school. You're an American. That's 6 million Jews and 3 million or more others were killed by the Nazi regime in a concerted state effort where they were seized and then killed, or seized and then put into camps where they died of bad conditions and sometimes were killed and gassed.
So the bad conditions is part of that. It's not necessarily like intentional in your.
No, they were intentionally bad conditions. I mean, it was designed and set up in a way so that they could try to get some labor out of them, but with spending the least amount of money possible. Basically, just work them while they decompose, and then get rid of them to make room for the new ones, so that you can have a hybrid goal of liquidating them while also getting some labor out of them.
What do you base that view on?
Based on the the first thing is the consensus of the historians and scholars and the first-hand narratives and accounts. And then the second thing would be the population studies and analyses that were conducted in the post-war period.
Appealing to consensus, though, is
What's that?
they're all just appealing to historical documentation.
Right.
Wait, what was that, JJ?
I'm saying you don't need to appeal to consensus at all, because that's just going to appeal to historic documentation.
Isn't that the only thing we have?
Do you have it?
Eyewitness accounts.
That's the important part. That's why I say there's no need to appeal to consensus.
Let's not get in our linguistic traps. The consensus exists because of the historical documentation existing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I agree with you, except in that you need the experts to interpret the first-hand accounts with the context of other information, right? Like the population studies. So, like, if we just went off the first-hand accounts, there's no way for me, like, as a non-professional, to extrapolate that into a context.
That's a good point.
I don't think that's true, but again, the population records, whatever you're being, that's also a historical account. That's all it is. Historical records. It's just historical documentation.
Ryan, have you ever, like, reviewed or anything like Holocaust deniers? Like what?
Yeah.
What, like what?
I think there's a lot of different beliefs that they have. Like some of them think that there was maybe like under 1 million or something. Like others think that it wasn't, like they weren't killing people on purpose. They were just bad conditions.
So like what you're saying about like population records and stuff might not really point to, because they could, like if someone's like, I think it was just bad conditions, that could be maybe possible, or are you saying that
I mean, you'd have to look at why. I mean, no, because they gassed a bunch of people and shot a bunch of people, and decided who would live and die at the camps. I mean, at the beginning, right? So, but in any case, even if it was due to bad conditions, then it's them who set up the bad conditions. I mean, conditions were not great during the war in Germany, but they were a hell of a lot better for Germans than they were for non.
So what I'm getting from this room is that Christians would rather believe in a 2,000-year-old Middle Eastern man creating the entire universe than an event that happened 80 years ago.
Huh?
I'm concerned for Christianity.
Is that how you view beliefs? You're like you'd rather believe that generally.
Well, I don't believe in free will, so I think you fell into this thought pattern outside of any conception of choice. But it's definitely
I can't really be blamed for it, I guess.
Yeah, I would never. I think the concept of blame doesn't really exist. It's just a linguistic concept. But
I mean, like if they did, what the claim is, they didn't really have a choice. So
yeah, there's no choice here. We can still. Well, we can care because we don't want you to spread your view to other Homo sapiens and destroy our society.
But they either they don't have a choice to accept it or reject it. I don't have a choice to say it. You don't have a choice to defend it. So what? Who cares? It sounds like you're saying you do want to act with your.
Yeah, you have to be careful with the language here. My actions can influence yours, even if I don't have ultimate choice over my action or you over yours. The illusion of action is still very high utility.
I gotcha. Yeah, because I could just have my lack of free will could just be a result of how your lack of free will acted upon me.
Jack, you there?
Yeah.
What do you think about all of this?
I mean, Rooster, he's dishonest and a Holocaust denier. So I'm not
It's
really
funny
sure why
because
he's tolerated.
it's funny because this all started with something I said about Jack, actually. Because Jack and I were in a room and it was like Christianity versus atheist. And somebody said, like, why are you even saying this stuff to Jack? He's not going to convert. And I said, I know. I understand Jack's an atheist and that he's Jewish. And they said, whoa, what does that matter? And I said, well, I think for a lot of Jewish people.
Oh my God, he is an anti-Semite.
Yeah,
For a lot,
Mac,
no,
you have
no.
a fifth sense for these things.
Listen. I said, for a lot of Jewish people, they would consider it a rejection of their identity to convert to Christianity. And I think that's true.
Ryan,
I
I'm
asked Jack
10%
about
now.
it. I would like to know what Jack thinks about that statement. Do you find that to be an anti-Semitic statement?
His identity by not believing in the Torah or not believing in any of the typical Judaism practices, right?
That's a question for Jack, not me.
Well, so it shows a problem with your argument.
No, I don't think believing in Torah is a prerequisite to having a Jewish identity. Clearly, I mean, there's plenty of Jews that don't. There's plenty of them that come in these rooms. Jack being one of them.
But it is now a conflict for Jewish identity in this hypothetical if you were to convert to Christianity because of what?
Right, because part of
I think we are live. Hello.
Non-religious Jews, I believe, is that. I mean, someone who
is not being Christian.
Disagree. Well, I am asking Jack what he thinks. He said, I guess he thought it was anti-Semitic. Does he think it's untrue to say that? But there's something about the identity?
He said probably. Probably. He doesn't, it's not. Without spending effort that he doesn't want to spend to investigate your views, I don't think he would want to give a more definitive. Boy, you have a good nose, Mac. You could smell them out.
I know. I told you. You didn't believe me.
I
but
didn't.
told
I
you.
was like, you've got nothing on him. You really
Yeah,
had nothing.
pretty impressed.
You had nothing other than...
What? Nothing other than people like making some charge.
No.
This is. I mean, I haven't seen that.
No, we have a history about this.
Replays are on. Don't try to lie. I did not pigeonhole you into this. You can't claim that.
Hey,
Again, all of this stems from my correct assertion that Orthodox and Catholics tend to have conspiratorial views about Jews, and I was proven correct.
Yeah, so with all politeness and with all sincerity, I didn't ask you, are you a Holocaust denier? I said, do you affirm that the Holocaust happened as described by mainstream society?
Yeah, I thought. I don't care if you asked, "Are you a Holocaust denier?" I also don't care that there's people that say it. What I care about is the fact that our people let this be a thought-terminating cliche, and that's a silly thing to do.
Why do you keep avoiding the question, Rooster? Why do you just avoid the question?
Observation that I've made about Orthodox and Catholics.
Right. This isn't just
Rooster,
about.
I just want to know, man. Why do you generally just avoid the question entirely? Like, why can't you just give us your opinion when people ask you questions?
Why do you have these magic phrases that I just have to say?
Oh my God, you don't. It's an observation that you're validating.
It reminds me of.
They control everything, don't they, Rooster? This is part of how they control you, right? How Jack's people control you. They make you say certain phrases.
Like Rooster, consider JJ. He doesn't even believe that Jesus existed, and so it's kind of like that. I mean, we could just go all day long in any room and interrogate him. Does he deny the fact of the Jesus? And
Well, it's a hotly debated topic.
In my opinion.
There's veracity in debating his existence. I think he was probably a person who existed, but it's still a hotly debated topic amongst the.
John, I agree that there's not much difference because it's like a sacred belief for
It's not worth the debate. It's like flat Earth. If someone's going to deny a spherical Earth, it's not worth the debate for me.
There's a lot
I don't
of
need
difference.
to know if they believe in a flat Earth or not. I don't need to interrogate them.
There's a huge difference between asserting that the world, the entire Earth is flat, which has been proven time and time and again through empirical evidence, versus the existence of a person who we have very little evidence, save anecdotal evidence for.
But still, if they believe in a flat Earth, why would I care to ask them, do they deny a spherical Earth? I mean, why would I even care?
Because you want to be interested in, if you're interested in history, for at least, it's sometimes good to look up the historical basis of which historical evidence comes from. That's what I at least think.
So they're not allowed to believe in a flat Earth, or they're not allowed to believe that Jesus is a myth, or they're not allowed to believe the Holocaust never happened. I mean, people are not allowed these things.
I never said people weren't allowed to. I never said they weren't allowed to, John.
Curious that my observation fits.
You're making an assertion of something I never said. I never said anyone didn't have permission to believe those things. I'm asking why people don't want to question a bit more and find knowledge and look up things rather than just taking things at face.
Is that something you?
So you feel a need to confront people like these? Is that what the issue is? You feel a need to
confront people like
to find out if they have a position on whether the Earth is a sphere or not?
No, not flat earthers. I don't bother with flat earthers because that's a fallacious argument.
You don't bother with flat earthers, but other people you're just going to antagonize. Is this what?
I don't antagonize anyone, John. I question people. I don't antagonize anyone. I'm not.
You don't
I'm
think
not
you're
Darth Dawkins.
antagonizing Rooster?
I'm asking him why he doesn't want to answer the question. I'm actually
I'm asking you. You
honestly
don't think you're antagonizing Rooster? It's either yes or no.
No. Not if I'm asking him from a sincere, empathic human being why he doesn't want to talk about
He
it.
was
I'm not.
antagonized, but Stu did not reasonably cause that antagonism. So Stu didn't cause it, but Rooster felt it. That's what
I'll give you an example, Stu. I don't deny the Holocaust, but I was asked that question maybe a couple of months ago, and I was asked incessantly, right? And I didn't answer it. And I was told that because I didn't answer, I'm not going to share the stage with a Holocaust denier, this and that. It was just incredible, the amount of just antagonism I received because I did not answer what they wanted me to answer. And it wasn't even it was for me, it was just that didn't deserve a response. That was
Would
my,
you
I don't know
share,
about
want
Rooster,
to share
but
the
for me, that was
stage, John, with someone who systematically murdered Christians?
Yes.
You would. You would honestly want to have
100%.
honest conversation with someone who was interested in systematically murdering Christians.
Wait, whoa, hold on 1 second, Stu. You're saying I systematically murdered Jews or am advocating for that?
No.
See, this
I'm
is why
asking
I say
John just
this is the dumbest shit that people say. They say
where
it
are
means
you
I
making
want
that
to kill Jews. I don't want to kill anyone.
I never said
What are you
that.
talking about then?
I'm making a
Well, you said-
generalized
you said-
statement about
You
are making the connections when there is no connection. I'm talking about a random person who has no anti-Semitic intent or no religious background systematically murdering religious people of all faiths. You would be totally cool with letting them on stage and letting them spew out their anti-religious hate rhetoric without any think about not one.
Yeah, number one, yes, I wouldn't mind.
I'm asking John. I'm asking John Rooster, and John's answering me. Sorry, go ahead.
Problem. Yeah, I have no problem sharing the stage with like Hebrew Israelites, communists who may have, supported the murder of Christians, whatever, right? So I have no problem with that. Now the question is, do we have individuals on the stage being anti-Semitic and supporting the murder of Jews and things like that? I mean, I don't see that. Do you? And even if they did,
I didn't say I was. I haven't even had a chance to mention anti-Semitism.
You asked the question.
Other people have been saying
I wouldn't mind sharing the stage. That's the answer.
Okay. Other people have been talking about anti-Semitism. Other people have been saying don't give him a voice. I'm just asking him a general question because whenever the question gets asked, Rooster doesn't want to seem to either A, give an account of what he believes happened at the Holocaust, or B, answer the question. He just don't.
He's already expressed, I don't know how many times. He just doesn't want to discuss it. Why is that a problem?
I've never heard Rooster say, I don't want to discuss the Holocaust. Can we talk about something else? He keeps saying, I don't have to understand why you want to make such a big issue about something. He doesn't seem to say, I don't want to talk about this. Can we talk about something else, please?
Yeah, Rooster, do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about this, Rooster?
I don't want to talk about the Holocaust as a historical event that did or didn't happen.
There you go, Stu.
Okay, well, step down from the stage because I wanted to engage you with that, but you obviously don't seem interested.
Wait a minute. Why does he have to step down from the stage? Because he doesn't want to discuss something?
Because if he is denying an actual historical event, like I was talking to you before, about the mass extermination of a whole group of people based around systematic genocide, I really don't feel the need to give that person the time of day. Now, you do, John. I can understand you are respectful and you have your opinions. I don't.
Here's the difference, okay? Rooster's not really talking about this. Now, I don't mind sharing a stage with the Hebrew Israelite who's denying a whole
open up
race
your
of
room,
people.
John, and share a stage with the Hebrew Israelites. Go
I
open up your room.
I do all the time.
John,
So my point
if we took your methods of discourse and extrapolated them onto humanity, we would not have the scientific progress or social progress we have today. At some point, you have to discount views and put them aside and not be willing to entertain them anymore.
Yeah,
right?
like JJ's Jesus mythicism. I just discount it, but I don't need to interrogate him or exclude him or just constantly
Nobody
pester him
is proposing to exclude anybody.
I mean, the horror in thinking that Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, did not exist. Oh.
No, I never said that. I said that there's many historians who are debating it, and I think it's okay to debate it, whether he existed or not.
Well, debating or not is another thing. In fact, Rooster keeps dodging the question and saying he doesn't want to debate it.
That's what I mean.
Rather than he's just being asked what his position is, regardless of any debate.
Yeah.
Now, John Lee, you don't debate the existence of Jesus or historicity of Jesus because you can't. Because you're too dim. You know nothing about the subject.
Or he doesn't want to because that would
completely disanalogous, Joe. Debate aside.
But if you've made a proposition, right, and I counter your proposition with my proposition, isn't that what a debate is? I'm saying I'm not doing that.
John doesn't want to, because any sort of doubt or any sort of thing that counts, that causes skepticism towards the veracity of the deific nature of Jesus calls his whole faith into question. So he doesn't want to entertain that.
That's the same thing that you all are doing. You don't want to entertain any idea that could call into question this sacred thing for you.
Because there is enough. Okay, Rooster, here's the difference. Hang on, John. Hang on, John. I just want to lay my point and then you can speak.
That belief or deny.
No. Rooster, what I'm saying is, the difference is, I was saying to John that Jesus Christ is a historically debated topic as not happening. In the general consensus, the Holocaust, while there are a small amount of detractors, is not debated as something whether or not it happened, or whether those people were killed or not.
About it?
I agree.
In a room.
It actually is debated. So is the flat Earth. That is also debated.
Okay. No. Again, you're talking about the percentage of people that accept versus the percentage of people that deny. The percentage of people that accept the Holocaust happened is a massive margin compared to the tiny amount of people that think it didn't happen. The massive amount of people that accept John. Okay.
Stu, as it turns out,
right.
And I don't mean to upset anybody by this, as you know, I'm an atheist, but as it turns out, it is the consensus of virtually every New Testament and Jesus scholar that is practicing. In fact, there's only, I believe, 2 professors right now in the world of New Testament and scholar studies who do hold to the mythicist position. And I've met one of them. Well, he's not teaching, actually, so that doesn't fit my criteria.
And this is why appealing to consensus is nothing without examining what that evidence for that consensus.
Yeah, exactly, JJ. And that's what I mean.
But let's not equivocate here, because the implications of the beliefs matter, like the way Homo sapiens form their beliefs and act on them matter. And it's a very, very, very different belief that a fascist regime 80 years ago committed a genocide than a Middle Eastern man created the entire universe.
I don't
think
there's a difference.
Right, and
I don't think there's a difference.
You're insane, John.
I would agree that human history. I mean, the history is littered with them. The Holocaust we talk about because it's modern and it's recent, as well as the Purge and Pol Pot and things that are part of modern society. That doesn't mean there hasn't been other genocides. There's been plenty. But what I'm saying is, I don't understand.
I think it's cancel culture gone awry. That's what I think it is. I think that's the fundamental problem here.
And
oh, really? Why do you think that, John? This is.
You think Holocaust history?
Why do you think it's cancel culture gone awry, John?
Because I do. I don't want to.
There you go.
I don't think you find
so much
people
so
in
much
the cancer
thinking and
crowd
stuff going around in that
happened.
I think that Scully of John Lee.
Happened.
Yeah, I don't want to debate my opinion or be forced to justify opinion. I just express.
Because I do. What do you think? I'm John Lee.
But you debate other people, John, and their opinions that they express on a regular.
You have function head. Why? You don't know.
Yeah, if they're not willing, why would I force an issue?
That's funny because you do that quite often, John.
I try to force people into a discussion.
No. You
or
force an
defensive
issue,
position
or
they're not willing
you
to.
force a position or an issue. You don't force people to join debate.
Can you provide an example?
Well, I wouldn't say force. I'd say that you like to use shoehorn, or you try to. Someone will make an argument, right? And so you'll pull a bit of a straw man and you'll drag something that isn't exactly related, either a bandwagon it or you'll make a straw man. Instead of actually replying to the actual argument, you'll drag another example that is only slightly related, like a straw man, and then make that point and not even talk about the actual argument that has been raised.
So are you saying I brought up a couple of false analogies right now? Is that what you're attempting to?
I can't say in this case, John. I mean, in other times I've spoken to you. This case, it hasn't happened so.
So you do agree that my analogies are relevant in a sense that it seems to me Rooster already expressed that he does not want to discuss it.
Well, I think bringing up flat Earth is again an overgeneralization.
Continually antagonizing him
I don't
because
feel
he
we're
happens to have a
antagonizing him.
view that is very objectionable to certain people. Like, who cares what you feel?
I don't feel holding someone to account is antagonizing. Antagonizing would be if we were constantly. I do feel that some people here attack his character more than I am comfortable to. But I would hold someone to account if they're quite happy to be dismissive of such an important event of modern history that is spoken about quite regularly and reminded about, because we don't want such an atrocity happen again. And for someone to come forward and go, well, we don't really know that happened. It's probably over-exaggerated. It's probably Western propaganda, and the Allies just exaggerated the numbers to make the Nazis look bad. And again, it's unhealthy rhetoric.
Yeah, I think atheism is unhealthy rhetoric. Now,
why do you think it's unhealthy rhetoric, John? I've given an example. I've given an exact example. Wait. I've given an example. Sorry. I've given an example as to why Rooster's position is unhealthy. If you're going to say atheism unhealthy, you have to then explain your position. In what?
Not only so,
atheism is unhealthy. In what way is atheism unhealthy?
Not only so, in certain countries it's viewed as so unhealthy, they're going to chop the heads off of people promoting atheism.
That's a great.
See what he does? See the straw man? This is what I mean.
I just heard in Saudi Arabia that women they changed it, but 20 years ago, if they drove, they could be sentenced to prison. I think that actually makes a really good conclusion about the state of woman driving, right? What are you saying, John? I think a way to reword this is and maybe in a more concise way, I totally agree, Stu. But Rooster, John, it's in a room where people discuss philosophy, empiricism, science, and stuff. We sometimes have to doubt people who don't seem very good at synthesizing information, right? So if Rooster came into this room and said, I don't believe water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. I just don't believe that. That doesn't really make sense to me. We may not want to talk to him, right? We may think he's not great at synthesizing information. So he basically did that. He says this really well-documented, first-hand account. Go ahead.
You don't believe knowledge exists. What are you talking about? Maybe water isn't.
I make probabilistic assumptions on knowledge. You got to be linguistic.
You could be wrong.
Absolutely, but I've made a lot of assumptions, and so has the scientific world.
You're saying you don't know that water is H2O, yet people still are talking to you.
Do you believe that you could be wrong about your own existence?
I don't even know what that means linguistically, but on the H2O
you don't know what that means?
Wrong about my own existence.
Right. You know you exist, presumably, But can you be wrong about it? Is the question.
How could you be wrong about anything if you don't exist, John Lee?
You got to ask Ray.
Well, I don't use those kind of terms as an agnostic. I can't be wrong because I don't take any fake position like the Christians do.
Oh, wait, it's just John Lee asking a dumb-ass question.
It's pushing
You
hard.
can't be wrong about your own existence.
Really, John? You're pushing hard solipsism.
So it's funny, like Ray saying, like, oh, we have to, like, if somebody believes something we don't like, we might not want to talk to him because it's so ridiculous. Meanwhile, he says he doesn't know anything that he may not even exist. I think he's showing that's not really true, Ray.
Rooster.
You guys need to look up epistemic fallibilism. Like, I don't think you really understand the philosophy. Well, it's not that I don't know anything or I don't believe anything. I make probabilistic assumptions, right? As all brains do.
Do you know that you do?
It definitely seems as if I do. I'm also probabilistically assuming that I do.
So you could be wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, you could be wrong about your own existence as well.
I'm open to that.
The difference is that,
You're
John, is that
open
you don't think
to
you're
you
wrong
not
about...
existing.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So, John, you think you're wrong about...
John, every night when you go to sleep and you dream, you don't always know that you're dreaming. You're wrong about your existence in that moment. I mean, in terms of your existing. And you have no way of knowing. Unless something in the dream or you realize that it is, you don't know what's going on.
Okay, so how about this? You have no way of knowing the Holocaust happened. How about that? Is that acceptable to you?
To 100% certainty? I don't know anything to 100%.
Yeah, I don't know why that's such a hard concept for you to grasp. You got to stop using this binary of you do or you do not know something. That's not the same.
By that yardstick, John.
Why would you care if someone
By
didn't
that
believe it? You're like, hey, it's
John,
possible.
It's possible that your entire belief system is a falsehood. It could actually be just a historically mythologized. That's not.
Yeah, what's the argument for that?
Hey, excuse me, I'm finished. I could be just an ancient mythology that turned into a type of monotheism, but it's just superstition and supernatural, John, and it doesn't exist. It's in your head.
That's your
God
epistemology, not mine.
But you just saying to us that we can't exist and we can't know anything.
I didn't
it's
say
the same
that.
thing about your belief, John.
I did not say that. I think you can know you exist. I think we can know things. That's
You said you can't be certain about anything. You just
no,
we think Ray
I
can.
did not.
Well, you can't be certain about everything, John, either.
Do you know that?
I think everyone is quite happy to admit, at least to those who have a healthy mind and able to look at things skeptically, that we cannot be. I don't believe there are any absolutes in the universe, and I cannot, for 100% certainty, know anything. Nor can you assert, John, that you 100% know everything about the divinity of Christ.
So you're saying, well, we can't know Solipsism is false. Is this your position?
I'm saying that you have to take by certainties.
I mean, you have a
there's no
difficulty
certainties,
answering
John.
simple yes or no questions.
We can't know anything, John. Nothing is certain, but there's no point in pushing hard solipsism. It's a waste of time.
You can know solipsism.
But you're using this as an argument, John.
The Holocaust happened. You can't know that. Is this correct?
John, if you're going to do that, you have to call your entire belief system into question as well. But you're not willing to.
I'm not the one doing that.
Don't let John Lee play his linguistic games. When you say a statement like you can't know the Holocaust exists, like you're moving away from our epistemic worldview that we have to keep repeating. We're saying we can't know with 100% probability that the event of the Holocaust happened. Right?
To be fair, that's the one thing they can know for 100%. That's the one. It's like God.
Rooster, your concern with people's views about the Holocaust is very much proving Mac's point of the anti-Semitism here. Why do you care so much? Would you not be concerned that people are denying Christianity, which is the worldview that created the entire universe in your world, right? Isn't that a little more concern?
Well, I'll tell you what,
That's what I wanted to ask before John cut me off and told me I was antagonizing Rooster. I was just going to ask him about where his ideology came from. But then John decided to cut me off. Then John decided to cut me off and tell me that I was antagonizing him after asking, what, 2 questions?
Yeah, so no, not you specifically. I don't know why you keep misrepresenting me, but yeah, people, in my view, have been antagonizing Rooster for several days now, and I think it's pathetic. I really do.
Asking somebody their position on a topic is not antagonizing them.
Of course it is. If they don't want to tell you your position, of course it's antagonizing. I'll tell you what. Someone asked me, do I have anal sex with my wife, right? And if they just kept incessantly asking me, they are antagonizing me. Okay?
That's a private question.
John, you're not allowed to. That's
his views on the Holocaust is a private question.
No, that's not a private matter, because the only reason they would want to be held private is because he holds the view that it didn't happen, which is socially unacceptable. So there's a different...
Socially unacceptable? Atheism is socially unacceptable.
Well, that's your opinion, dude. That's like your opinion.
And
Right?
that's your
you would be the
opinion
weirdo.
about the Holocaust denial, sir. That's my whole point.
Well, no. Your point doesn't stand, because the reason that it stands with the anal sex is that that's a private affair. That's a private...
John, do me a favor. Go into a Starbucks one day, John, and say I don't believe in the Holocaust.
Whether
a
a person believes the Holocaust happened or not, whether someone believes they are descended from ethnic Hebrews, whether someone believes a flat earth, whether someone believes Jesus did not exist, these are all private affairs. And if they can make it public if they want, and if they don't want to discuss it, that is their prerogative.
No, okay, it is their legal right to not discuss it. However, there is no privacy interest in that. You have not been able to articulate a privacy interest of any kind, and you will not be able to do that, because
and it's my prerogative to rail on this sick cancel culture that thinks that they are some sort of social warriors,
the Holocaust
and try
is
to
cancel culture
people, exclude people because of some sort of societal virtue. And you're just
That's a good question, Mac. That's a good question, Mac. Why is it?
The Holocaust happened 80 years ago. Like,
what does that have to do with cancel culture, John? What does it have to do with cancel culture? I asked Rooster a very fair question. Do you affirm that the Holocaust happened?
And he doesn't want to affirm and believe. Do you believe?
So that's not a gotcha. That's not.
It's not. But it's not.
He doesn't want to discuss it.
And the question is why. We went over why you wouldn't want to reveal whether you fuck your wife in the act.
Why?
John, let me tell you why I asked. I want to tell you why, because it's common that Catholics and Orthodox have conspiratorial views about Jews. I wanted to see if I was right about that, and it turned out in Rooster's case, I was right yet again about that.
Yeah, he's a Holocaust-denying anti-Semite, and that's
so you need to have it.
And then in response to that, he said, "Why do you think Catholics and Orthodox believe in conspiratorial views about Jews?" Implying that there's a reason that people ought to have conspiratorial views about Jews. So it underscored the anti-Semitism, not that he was afraid of some cancel culture bullshit.
Well, I guess you could just say there's no.
If he may not be concerned with cancel culture, but I am.
I am concerned with cancel culture, but this isn't that.
Hang on, you may be concerned with Holocaust now, but maybe he nor I are.
I'm not. I'm just pointing out that Catholics and Orthodox tend to have conspiratorial views about Jews. It wasn't about cancel culture. It wasn't about discounting him as a interlocutor. It wasn't about that. But you're making it about that because you got in here with no context and you're just spouting off.
No, I would say John has
I have plenty more context than you do because I've been involved with interactions with Rooster. I've witnessed it. I've also been involved in mediating for it. I've also talked to Rooster a couple hours. Nice gentleman. I mean, it's not like he's espousing certain anti-Semitic views when I had a discussion with him. What was it, Rooster? About 2 hours? I mean,
wow, he made it 2 hours.
It's a product of his Orthodox faith.
My point is, you guys are obsessed with this, and it's very unhealthy.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm congratulating myself over validating yet another Orthodox believing in anti-Semitism.
If the shoe fits, wear.
Yeah, and then you're more than welcome to have that discussion. But why don't you just talk about him without
thank you
him?
for giving me
He's not
permission to have
willing
the
to
discussion in a room that you weren't in prior to you joining. And telling us we couldn't talk about.
I was in most of these rooms that involve Rooster, far more than you.
I was in these rooms 20 years ago.
When I witness all the abuse about John, and I feel bad, I just remember moments like this when he's a lying sack of shit.
Well, there you go. I mean, the personal attacks and justification. You guys feel good about yourselves because you're going after this reprehensible person. We can't have this views in society. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is worse than McCarthyism.
I haven't been.
John, you're
holding a person to answer a question about whether or not they believe in a commonly like agreed upon historical event is McCarthyism. You heard it here.
Cancel culture. Don't forget cancel culture.
This is
I am against like we're still in the 60s. It's great, man. You talk about communism like it's this like villainous, horrible ideology.
It is that.
It's under the bed.
It is.
I too am against unreasonable cancel culture, John. And this is not that. You're cheapening people who want to stop unreasonable cancel culture by claiming that this is cancel culture. This is why they
cancel culture when I.
This is what they do.
Yeah, but you can't wait to.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if you want to have a star chamber, carry.
It's not a star chamber to ask somebody a question, and if they don't want to answer, and there's no reasonable privacy interest, there is but one reasonable answer for why they don't want to answer. There's no legitimate privacy interest in answering whether you believe the Holocaust happened.
We don't even have to take it down. I was asked the same question. I was asked the very same question. Do you deny the Holocaust?
Well, and that might be considered a rude question. I did not say that. I said, do you affirm that the Holocaust happened? I did not ask the question from a place of denigration or disrespect.
He already answered. He does not affirm the Holocaust. I believe
I don't
that's
actually
what he said.
know because I've never got to ask him, John, because he cut me off before I even got a chance to ask him.
He's already answered that numerous times.
But I'm not psychic. I'm not God, John. I don't know what anyone's thinking, and I haven't been in the rooms that long, so I was just generally interested. And then it wasn't in a method of antagonizing. I'm just trying to understand, in the scope of human history, with how many atrocities that have happened, why he doesn't want to accept this one particular atrocity and genocide didn't.
I know the answer. I know the answer because they believe that Jews are liars and manipulating world events in order to for their selfish goals.
There you go.
Why would someone think?
If the world were run by Jews, it would be run a lot better. I'll tell you that.
What do you think you're doing? Like shedding light on something? You think you're doing something good? You're doing something pathetic. No,
I'm just highlighting that Catholics and Orthodox tend to have anti-Semitic views, and I wasn't wrong.
Well, yeah. Why don't you repeat it to yourself 5 times more?
I said traditional Catholics and Orthodox.
Yes, why don't you tell it to yourself 6 times more? How about?
What's a traditional Catholic?
In fact, why don't you debate it by yourself, to yourself?
Thanks, John. Thanks for your contribution.
That's pretty good.
You're welcome.
What do you mean by traditional Catholic? Because I am Catholic, but I don't know.
Ones who really believe the religion and don't pick and choose and follow and think that Pope Francis is a fake pope because he believes in climate change and evolution.
I think Pope Francis is the.
Well, let me say this, okay? My wife is brought up Catholic.
But yeah.
No, my wife is brought up. She
John
has
Lee, like I'm literally turning my phone down when I see the gray circle around you.
So my wife is Catholic. When we go to family events,
I'm sorry I
we
ever
literally
defended
have
you.
hundreds of Catholic family members. I don't see any of them, not even one.
If I can ask it this way, to Rooster,
I don't know what your experience is.
Rooster, I want to ask it this way.
But your hypothesis.
John, I'm just going to ask
more
you.
than a conspiracy.
John, I want to ask Rooster a question, if that's okay.
Answer the question.
What's up, Stu?
You want to ask me a question, or who?
No, I want to ask Rooster a question.
Oh, of course. Yes, so you want to antagonize him. I get it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Rooster, that I'm antagonizing you just since
I don't believe that, but that's...
you. Yeah, I'm not. I don't generally like to antagonize people. I'm trying to get to understand their point. I try to understand people's point of view, so I openly approach them and like to talk to them. I don't just go Holocaust denier. So I wanted to ask you, in what way, for example, if we could just make a general example, that the Holocaust, so let's just call it the genocide of what Nazis called the undesirables. So that is the gypsies, that is disabled people, mentally disabled people, ethnic groups, and Jews, differed to, say, Stalin's purge, where he killed about, I think it's estimated about 9 million people.
12 million.
How do you think the two differed?
12 to 20.
How do you think the two differed? Like, do you not think that the Nazis were capable of killing about 9 to 10 million people across the board?
You guys are probably capable of that. I mean, yeah, the whole world was at war. Didn't they kill like 15 million Russians or something?
No, Stalin's purge is different. I'm talking about the purge.
No, I'm not saying Stalin. I'm saying the
before
Germans themselves. Didn't the Germans lose? Sorry, the Russians lose like somewhere around 15 million, something like that.
Yeah, that's all.
19 million battle, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm just talking about.
Do I think they could kill 9 million if they killed more than 9 million? Yeah, sure. I think they could kill. They obviously killed a lot of people in this war.
I'm not talking about battle, though. I'm talking about civilians. The same way that Stalin killed civilians during the.
Okay. Could they have killed civilians? Yeah, sure. Like the way the Allies did.
So
firebombing Dresden, nuking 2 cities in Japan.
Well, that Hiroshima was about 300, Nagasaki was about 350, plus radiation is hard to determine, but I think it probably about 1 million people all up between the 2 cities, right?
But more specifically, not in the same way.
Also, more people died from the firebombing of Tokyo than the 2 atom bombs combined anyway, so that's moot. What I was trying to ask you is that do you not think that the numbers add up? You don't think that there was that many civilians killed by the Nazis,
Why is
including?
I don't look into the numbers. I don't have like some alternate number. I'm saying.
Why do you have a problem with the number?
I don't know. Why don't I look into? I mean, there's tons of information I don't look into. I mean,
do you deny semiconductors work the way that scientists say they do? Do you affirm or reject that?
I'm not really sure.
I'm saying that it's just a number, Rooster. It's a number of people that allegedly and reportedly from records collected.
It's not.
Stu, can I have the floor for a moment?
Okay, Mac, go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on, Mac. Let Stu finish.
No, Rooster. Do you believe that semiconductors, like that those exist in your computer or phone, work the way that scientists say they do?
Okay.
Do you or do you not?
How do they?
Answer the question. Do you believe that semiconductors work the way that scientists... Okay, you know semiconductors like transistors and integrated circuits and stuff, do you believe that they work the way that scientists claim they do?
How do they
using band gas, quantum physics.
Right? This is the same thing, and I know.
No, I do.
That's just dodging Mac's question.
But you accept,
right?
But you accept that they do. You accept that they do, and you don't need to personally review the evidence and review the numbers and review that. You accept that they are experts on that subject. So Holocaust historians have come up with
various means of calculating and doing population studies and, reviewing records and all, but you seem to have a lot of skepticism about that in particular, and I'm curious as to why.
Yeah, because he thinks it's done by dirty Jews.
Oh, of course.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't say I have any. I'm just. I didn't say anything about what you're talking about. I didn't say, "Oh, these historians are making stuff up." I didn't say anything like that.
You did say that.
I didn't.
You did say that in your conversation with Stu. You were expressing hyper-skepticism. And I was saying that you're not skeptical about how computers work as we're talking, and you acknowledge that Samsung makes phones that work and Apple makes phones that work and stuff. So you're not very skeptical about, that stuff. But it seems that you really don't know, about all this Holocaust history. You don't know, and you have no expertise or really, any insight into.
So why are you asking me? You're like, this guy's a dumbass. He doesn't know. He doesn't.
Because I'm exposing it.
Why do you care what I think?
Because it was a rhetorical question designed to expose your hypocrisy and double standards.
I'll say why I think it is, because I think.
So, Stu, I'm going to give you back the floor. Thank you for.
And that your thoughts have been terminated, or
it's a stupid terminating cliche.
You think it should be a thought terminating cliche, and it bothers you when someone says, "For me, it isn't." And
no, it doesn't. It validates. No, it validates my spidey sense that Catholics and traditional Orthodox are anti-Semitic. And that was going to be it. It wasn't a thought terminating cliche. It wasn't cancel culture. It was just. It's what McGruber, who is becoming an expert, says.
Rooster, a moment ago, I asked you about the World War II, and you agreed that there was that many Russians who died in battle, and I don't deny you. The Japanese killed a lot.
Yeah,
of
I don't really know how many, but that's the number they say, right? Like the huge numbers.
Right.
Is it 15 million? I just pulled that out out of.
Yeah, well, there was a lot because of exposure, because of starvation, because of when they were fighting in winter, and the Red Army lost a lot during.
This is 27 million when I googled it, so I guess I was off. Maybe I'm
the Russians lost the most of any
World
of the
War
other.
II army denier, because I said 15 million. Right, I just don't know the numbers. I didn't know the numbers of the Soviet. Okay, I just didn't know. Like, who gives a shit? Like,
But when I asked you
understand,
specifically, Rooster, about the numbers of the number given, the 6 to 9 million number.
Yeah, so that's a number everyone knows. But even though the Soviets, 27 million. This other number you're saying is more important. And what I'm saying is...
No, I'm saying, are you disagreeing with that many civilians were killed in concentration camps?
I disagree that we need to consider that number the most important number.
But why don't you want to even acknowledge that it's the number? It's just the amount killed. I acknowledge that there was a lot of Chinese killed at Nanking. I acknowledge that there was about 20 million or so Russians died. I acknowledge that Stalin killed 12 million or so during the purge. I don't say, it's just a number and we don't need to focus on the number. I accept it as the general historical consensus view of how many people were killed in that genocide.
How many Chinese were killed at Nanking?
God, the
I can look it up.
Here is insane.
Yeah, you can look
But
it
I'm
up. There's
saying-
another number you don't have to look up.
So
because
why
it's
do you
seared into
not-
your mind as the most important number?
Let me ask you this way: how many people, roughly, do you believe the Nazis killed in their concentration camps during the Holocaust? Just your your opinion. It's not necessarily factual. Just your opinion.
I don't really have an opinion on it. It's not something I've.
Okay. You don't.
There you go. He doesn't have an opinion on it.
You don't think that the number is valid at all? The systematic genocide.
That's a completely
as was done by
different.
other
You're
countries.
you're equating like two statements that are not the same.
But you're
What
okay
I
talking
said-
about how many Russians died in battle. You didn't seem to have a problem with that number.
Here's the problem, Stu. You said you want to know people's view. I'm telling you my view. My view is we should not consider this the most important central thing around which every conversation has to
It doesn't,
circle.
Brewster. This is the first time I've spoken about the Holocaust with anyone, apart from speaking, in weeks. I'm trying to, but people are going to
This is my view.
call
You
it.
said you want my view. That's my view, Stu. So as you continue to ask other
You haven't
things,
answered my.
not
Yeah.
related to what my view is. So I think that when you say,
But why don't you want to answer the question about?
You are not being honest.
But you're not being honest when we ask you if you want to deny that it happened. You don't want to answer that
I'm being
question.
super honest. I told you I don't debate it as a historical event. How more honest do you need me to be?
You don't debate it, so you think it is a historical event that happened.
Okay.
You said you don't debate it as a historical event, so
There you go.
accepted that it's a historical event
Right,
that
so
occurred.
when you say you just want to have someone's view, you just want them to be able to express their view.
I want to know your opinion on the Holocaust
because you want to
and
press
the genocide.
You want people to say your magic phrases about how many people died and
Brewster,
whatever.
I wouldn't think any larger, bigger, or lesser of you if you said you don't think the Holocaust happened.
No
that,
way
again,
a
is your
Christian is
belief.
concerned with magic phrases that seem to imply mass think and community thought without real criticism, without real skepticism coming from someone who believes in a man creating the entire universe 2,000 years.
Right, but you don't believe that you can know anything, so why do we care what you say?
Brewster, I've spoken to other people who don't believe the Holocaust happened.
Christian.
And a presuppositionalist Holocaust guy.
Right.
Sorry, I thought that was Ray speaking, not you, Mac. I had that wrong, I guess.
Rooster, if it makes you feel better, Rooster, I was raised in an Orthodox Christian community for 18 years, was a deacon. Like, I know the whole game. So just denying my epistemology and saying you have no idea what you're talking about isn't great. Like, I understand your side, I think, a little better than you do mine.
I'm not Eastern Orthodox. I think that seems to be the thing people are saying.
Well, just to get back to the point I was trying to make is, Rooster, I've spoken to a couple of people who've told me they don't believe the Holocaust happened or they think it was a conspiracy. And I've spoken to them and I said, why do you believe that? And they've given me their views.
What did they say?
Some of them are anti-Semitic. Some of them think it's part of a Jewish conspiracy or that the Allies did it to support the foundation of Israel. And it was only just that it was solely fabricated to support the formation of the nation of Israel. That's one of the views I've heard. It's not belief.
So they were
I don't
talking
agree with that belief.
They were talking sort of about the effects of it rather than like what you're asking me about, like the mechanics and the numbers.
Well, someone's asked you if you accept that it happened as historically transpired, and you don't even seem to want to answer that question either.
Okay.
And then when we talked about the numbers of people dying, we were quite openly talking about other atrocities and other people who've died, but when it came to the Holocaust, again, you seemed to not want to focus on it. And you said, I don't feel the need why we have to make this an issue. Again,
I don't want to focus.
Why do you need to make it an issue?
I don't want to focus.
Why is it an issue? Well, it's not an issue if you just answered the question 3 hours.
That's what we're saying.
That's what they said when I wouldn't answer the question.
But
it's deny the
no,
Holocaust.
you were asked the question.
It went on for days. Complete lunacy.
You can unmute. You can unmute.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know I was on mute. But
So
like I
please-
was saying, so can I
please-
finish my
no, no, no,
statement?
hold on,
See, that's
hold
what
on.
I'm saying. You guys ask.
When you give an answer, give your evidence. You said some Christians. Can you point out what they call themselves? Who are those Christians? Don't promise us something you cannot give. So you made the claim that there are some Christians believe in what you just said.
Right.
Please tell us who are those
Specifically,
Christians.
historically, because we want to know where these Christians were before the time of Muhammad, because that's all we're concerned with. We're not concerned with what your neighbor might say today if he claims to be a Christian. We're concerned with what Christians believed in the time of Muhammad to know who he's responding to. So
That's what I mean when I say some, not all. I'm not. Maybe nobody in this room does, but I know some who do.
Okay,
and
can
they
you show
believe.
any historical
But that's not
reference
even
for
the
Christians
point.
to
I'm trying to
believe
get.
that? No, it's a major point. It's a major point.
No,
Because
no. I'm not saying I know any priest or any famous Christians who believe that. I can't say that.
So don't make the claim if you can't back it up. Because
But
you
my
look
claim is
like a
true.
liar.
But
When we call you a liar, don't blame us for insulting you.
okay, so can I finish talking?
Yeah, here's what you gotta do. I'll let you finish, but here's what you gotta do. You have to prove from Islam, from the Quran, from Muhammad, if you accept the Hadith. I know you said you're studying them out now, but
See, now you're
anyway,
getting
if
off
you-
the topic.
No. This is. Let me finish what I'm saying, so you know what I'm saying. If you can prove from anywhere in the Quran or any of the Hadith that you accept, where it's acceptable for a Muslim to be called a child of Allah in a metaphorical sense. That's if you can prove that, then you won the argument. Then I'll never use this argument again. But if you cannot prove that, then what it shows is that Muhammad contradicted Moses, and he therefore cannot be the prophet like Moses, makes him a false prophet.
Okay, so can I finish?
Yeah, just stay on that train of thought, though. But go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying not to lose my train of thought. All right, so like I said, the term child of God or son of God, it's not something it's not always blasphemy, unless you're really saying that this person is the offspring of God. But the term child of God or son of God, when you use it metaphorically, it's okay. It just because I know that in the Bible that term is used to say that a person is a servant of God. That's not a crime. Now, here in the Quran, it's addressing these people claiming to be children of God. And if you're not a servant of God, you're not a child of God. If you're a sinner, you're not a child of God. Period. So that's why it says so. Well, it says the Christians and the Jews say.
I'll let you get all that
Can
out. I'll let you get all that out. Now, could you just address the point that I asked you about? Can you show anywhere from the Quran or from the Hadith that you accept where it's allowed for a Muslim to call himself a child of God in this metaphorical sense?
Muslims don't.
If you cannot do that, then what that shows me is that Muhammad is not a prophet like Moses, and he's a false prophet.
Okay. In Islam, that term is not used at all.
So you can't do it.
No,
Okay,
because we don't use that terminology.
Marcus, check this out.
It don't say the verse in the Quran doesn't say that Muslims make that claim. It's the Jews and the Christians who make the claim that they're the children of God.
Check this out, Marcus. So check this out. So Moses used this term in a metaphorical way, saying, "You are the children of the Lord your God."
Mm-hmm.
That's what Moses said. Now you're telling me the prophet, like Moses, never said that.
He never said that.
You just said.
Right.
So the prophet, like Moses,
accept the numbers of people that died, the methods, whatever it is, that then will lead to future genocide. I think that is a silly thing to say. I am not advocating for any kind of genocide. So if that's what your concern is, I would say you should consider it assuaged. I don't want genocide. So, but I think you still do feel that way, and I think because it has been used as a thought-terminating cliche, it has been put forward in a way that, for that reason, then if I say, hey, I don't care about it, whatever, I think it shouldn't be something that determines how we organize society to say if it happened the way you say or not. It's there because it blocks maybe certain ideas that aren't related that you can then say that will necessarily lead to genocide, which I think is a stupid thing to say.
Well, I don't think that you're a sort of person who would want to commit genocide, Rooster, and that's not what I was asserting. And I would hope you're not the sort of person who does. I don't think most people want to commit genocide. In fact, I don't think many people, even including people in the SS, necessarily wanted to commit those acts. It was that they were in a position of where they were under either a dictatorship or a fascism, where you followed with the crowd, because if you didn't, well, generally you were punished or you suffered consequences. So there was a general belief as well in the acceptance of prejudice and racism, that it was okay because they weren't real people anyway. So we're kind of doing a service. We're kind of doing a service by doing this because they're not real people.
They said they weren't real people.
Well, if you look into things like some of the documentations in the build-up to the Jewish solution and some of the ideologies behind the Jewish problem, which it was called.
Like what should I look into if I want to see that?
Well, do you want to? Well, I don't know. You want me? If you want, you could really start with Mein Kampf and read other things, but I wouldn't recommend unless you want to take it from a historical
Mein Kampf
What came first, your Catholicism or your Holocaust agnosticism? Curious minds.
Are you Stu? Are you saying if I read Mein Kampf, I'm going to read something that says something like Jews aren't real people?
Pretty much.
Okay, I have not read Mein Kampf. Have you?
No, but I've read the parts that have translated that talked about Hitler's ideology behind the Jews.
Yeah, he
and how
thought they were a race of subhuman. Yeah.
Well, more the fact that they were to blame for. It was a more complicated issue because the Jews did run financial institutions at the time,
okay, so
and they were suffering through.
You're saying blaming something for a negative effect is the same as saying that they're not real humans? That's what I'm talking about is when I say thought terminating cliche.
The general consensus of the Übermensch and the ideology behind Nazism, they were subhuman. They weren't considered human beings. Same for the Slavs.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Same for blacks.
Well, if it's true. Why was Slovakia an ally?
No, it is absolutely true.
Oh, I guess that's why they turned on the
Hitler-
Russians and
Hitler thought
executed in many numbers, Rooster. Because they considered anyone from the Slavic countries subhuman.
Yeah, where do you get that from, Stu? That doesn't make sense if you look at how the politics were, how the war was going, to say they just considered all Slavs subhuman. Does that even, like, when you hear that, are you like, yeah, that does
They
make
are
sense?
racial subhuman. That is what he believes.
Okay, so why were they allied with Slovakia?
You can be allied with subhumans. It doesn't.
They were allied with Romania.
Do you feel like
Rooster? They were allied with Romania.
allied
That
with
didn't stop
Russia.
them lining up Romanians against the wall and executing them en masse.
So, do you think they viewed the Japanese as subhuman, or were
Yes,
they
they did.
different than the Slavs?
Yes, they did, because
They did.
Hitler was
They
even talking
explicitly
about
said-
the ideology.
Hitler
Yeah.
explicitly said, he said, people of our race are the top, and then he listed the other ones in descending order.
Quote? Well, anyway,
Yes.
so
It is a quote.
to say you're telling me that Hitler thought non-Germanic people
Yes.
just weren't human?
The
were a
idea
racial
behind
sub-
the Third Reich was behind the idea that Germans were descended from Aryan peoples from
Sure.
South Asia, which is
Right.
incorrect. They used that as a basis of what he
What?
described
Wait.
as. Let me finish.
Where,
They used that as a
where
basis.
did the Europeans come from?
Germans did not come from the Aryan race.
Where did they come from?
Well, a lot of what we've traced them, some of the Germanic peoples came from the
Stu, you are really terrible for falling for red herrings, by the way.
Stu, people came from, they
I
came
know.
across the steppes on horses. That's like how they got over there.
Where is this going anyway, Rooster?
It's irrelevant.
Well, it's relevant.
Hitler and the Nazi regime thought that Germans were of certain stock, call it Aryan or whatever, and
well,
others
they thought it was
weren't.
the best. Everyone
And
thinks
others
it's the best.
weren't, and that they, hello, and that the others were lesser beings.
I think Rooster has
Are
pretty.
you denying that, Rooster?
I do. I think, like, people all over the world throughout time have been like,
Are you denying what I said?
Aristotle thought Greeks were the best. Who
Are you
gives a shit?
denying what I said?
You're like founding your whole thing about.
Do you agree with what I said?
Flowing from Aristotle, who
fact
said
that he's
Greeks are the
not
best.
wanting to agree with it.
Do you agree
Aristotle
with what
said,
I
like,
said, Rooster?
Aristotle said, like,
I mean, I can tell you what I have to reference to if you like.
How the fuck did we?
I can tell you
I don't
a
think
bunch
that
of other
level
irrelevant
of
things.
dishonesty
You're an
from somebody in one of these
anti-Semitic
rooms.
sack of shit.
Aristotle thought that.
Do you agree with what I said, Rooster?
What was it you said?
Yeah, you weren't even
fuck off.
listening. Jesus.
Well, you said a lot of
Christ.
things. You said a lot of things. Which thing are you asking? If
No,
I
he asked you a question.
Is there anything that I said? Is there anything that I said that you disagreed with?
Jew hater.
Yeah, I disagree that they were saying that non-Germanic people are less than human. I disagree with that. Sure.
Why do you disagree with that?
I've never seen anything that really indicates that. And even if you find we don't like these people, whatever, I don't think that like Slavs were subhuman, like under human beings.
Well, you'd be wrong. Did you look at all for any of this?
Yeah,
no.
You don't know. You don't even fucking know.
So if you haven't
shown,
just like you guys, right?
If shown this evidence, would you accept it?
Yeah, perhaps if it was
Perhaps.
Well, so it depends what you mean by evidence, right? Because you might say, "Hey, look, I found something where this SS person said, I don't really like Slavs, guys," and you're like,
"Why don't you look at
Mein
Mein Kampf and start there? Because there's a lot of allegation to Jews being subhumans, and he talks a lot about Jews being the Jewish problem."
You want?
You don't have to necessarily read the whole book, but look up anti-Semitism. Rooster,
the problem is not the same as saying they're subhuman.
Rooster,
and you think
why don't
you know
you look up Look up anti-Semitism in Mein Kampf from historians who know German, who understand the book well, and who can explain it. From the position of nationalism, from the position of fascism, which was very popular and rising in the 30s. Look at it from that perspective, and you'll see a lot of evidence that supports his worldview.
So you want me to look at it from Hitler's perspective or someone else's perspective who's critical of him, you're
Who
saying?
do you think called the shots, apart from Goebbels and Hitler? Who do you think had absolute control for the majority of the Nazi? You think that he didn't try and rule with absolute control? He did. In fact, that's what happened to a lot of the decisions that ended up with the Nazis falling on the back hole, because there was many decisions Hitler made that were strategically stupid because he refused to let others take command.
Okay.
And I'm just saying it wouldn't hurt to do a bit of research. That's all I'm saying. Do a bit of research.
Okay, we should
and
stop entertaining this troll. He has very solidified beliefs about the entire existence of reality, but is extremely skeptical onto historical events 80 years ago. He's not a good faith actor.
Well, I've said what I'm skeptical about. I'm skeptical that what this event you're talking about has these entailments that everyone has to say certain.
Sure, are you skeptical that a man resurrected from the dead? Is that something that should warrant skepticism? That a man created the entire universe? You're a joke. You're an intellectual joke.
Ray, you think there's no such thing as justified?
And here we go with more deflection because you can't. Rooster, you have positively got to be the most dishonest person I've ever seen on this planet.
I want to know how
Every
should we
single
organize society
question,
based on
every
knowing the
single
Holocaust
question
happened.
somebody asks you, you bring up something completely fucking different. This is insane.
Well, I would say if someone tells you they don't debate this thing that you're trying to do, I don't understand why you keep going on and on and on for hours with that person about it, right?
Because
you're saying
insufferable, Rooster. You just keep deflecting every single thing we aim at you. Even the most general question.
Yeah, so if you aim a projectile at someone, you're criticizing them.
Holy shit. Like, is your IQ literally lower than the temperature in the vacuum of space? Like, I don't fucking understand.
Right, you're like, let me aim this arrow at you. How dare you deflect it? That's an odd... I don't quite get why you would...
denying that... What's happening? Is he just denying
It's denying everything as far as I can see.
Okay, I'll let you know what happened. I'll let you know what
Well,
happened, Haiti.
No,
I
Katie brought these
respectfully
people
asked him, Mac, shut up. Mac had a sixth sense that a Holocaust denier is here based on what he believes. So I asked a respectful question. I said, Rooster, do you affirm that the Holocaust happened as narrated and believed by mainstream scholars? Do you believe that about 9 million people were killed in the Holocaust? And he refused to answer the very respectful, non-gotcha question. He claimed victimhood, and then John Lee came in and claimed cancel culture as his attorney, and it was none of that. It's a very fair
None of
question.
that? Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a very fair, very balanced question, and he doesn't want to answer it. And he claimed privacy. John said, "Well, if somebody asked me whether I have anal sex with my wife, I wouldn't answer." And I said, "Right, because it's private." And this is not private. What privacy interest do you have in not affirming the Holocaust?
Wait, John, did you just admit that Holocaust denial is also private?
Of
So
course.
you are affirming that Rooster is a Holocaust denialist then?
No, I'm saying that the
Then I don't know on what grounds he would have the right to
pointing
refuse
yes.
to answer a question based on privacy if he isn't a Holocaust denier. What you said is fucking stupid.
I think John's saying
irrespective. He said he didn't want to discuss it. I mean,
Most of what John says is stupid.
True.
You guys are justifying antagonizing him because of your agenda.
Yeah, I don't think there's something
an
wrong with
agenda,
antagonizing
okay, sorry.
somebody who seems to deny the Holocaust as it's currently understood historically.
Right, so
who
it's not
cares
that
if he
you're
does
not
or not? Who cares?
You think it's just antagonism, which is just, silly in my opinion.
Well, actually, I think the antagonism is good because the fact that you have dodged, duck, dip, dive, and dodged to the extent that you have a very, very simple question concerning a historical event is very, very revealing. And I think that the vast majority of people in this room right now would say that.
Well, I think
who cares?
I think the antagonism itself is evil, but I actually don't mind it because people see what you're doing. They can see that what I'm saying is true.
I see it.
And I get people messaging me all the
Phyllis,
time.
do you feel that I was antagonizing Rooster?
No.
Mac, do you feel I was antagonizing Rooster?
No.
JJ, was I antagonizing
Yes,
Rooster?
of course you were. What do you want, an ad populum now?
You're the only one who's actually made that accusation, John.
So you want an ad
I'm just
populum? Is this
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we
you
want
said-
here?
You obfuscated,
You might as well
John.
take
You
a
said
poll
that
on
you
who believes
felt
Jesus existed.
antagonized. Feeling
I
antagonized.
was trying my
You believe
utmost
Jesus
to not be
existed?
antagonist, John. In fact, I was entertaining
No,
a
it sounds
lot
like
of
that's just
Rooster's
your
ideas.
feelings.
Yeah, it's almost like
100% you're
feelings are fast.
antagonizing him, Stu. Even after he told you explicitly, I don't want to discuss it. And then you justified yourself, and then half an hour later, even 45 minutes later, you're still on it. And you're still triggered. And you're still justifying
I'm triggered,
yourself.
am I, John?
It's
I'm so
pathetic.
sorry.
It's
I'm
utterly
so sorry. I'm
pathetic.
triggered. Oh no, I'm.
So we can't just.
Well, I'm fine with discussing it, but I'm going to discuss it as I discuss it, right? And you all together as a collective, not everyone in this room, not everyone who does it is in this room, but there's an antagonism about it. Yeah, sure. But I don't mind that antagonism being shown because people can see how people who come in and...
It's repeating yourself.
Right. People who come
Repeating
in and...
yourself.
Right. And people come in like
Yeah.
You Rooster, you're putting a
Rooster's just
spotlight on
repeating
it.
himself.
Altoid had
I'm
a picture where...
I'm not interested.
You're putting a
Yeah, Rooster,
spotlight on
I'm ready to have open
Kudos.
discourse and just understand your opinion. Because as I said, I've spoken to Holocaust deniers before and sat down with them and tried to understand their opinion. You didn't even want to entertain that. Now, I can't speak for anyone else here who's going to jump down your throat if you said that. I wouldn't, because as I said, I've spoken to Holocaust deniers before, and I've tried to get them to understand that it's probably not a healthy way of...
Right, but Stu,
John,
I don't mind talking to Stu, but Stu, if you're asking me my opinion is the numbers, all that stuff you're asking me about is irrelevant to me. What my opinion is that it should not be a thought-terminating cliche. That is what my...
We asked you a very nice question, and then you used
Answer the question.
unreasonable response. You waited till we responded to your unreasonable response, and then poked and accused us of having an unreasonable response in the first place. This is a game that you play, and nobody's convinced by it. You're a burnt chicken, and that's all you are. You just run around, you're a chicken. You don't want to answer the question.
I'm not... you're saying I'm not convincing anyone. I'm not trying to convince anyone of the topic as you're putting it forward. What I'm trying to convince people, and it's obvious. I mean, people who listen to the replay, these
sounded like to
that
me,
you go
Rooster,
on with
that
a
you were
thought.
trying to basically get me and want me to question everything, most of the things about the veracity of A, the Holocaust, B, the Nazi regime, C, Hitler's motives behind the Holocaust.
What I want you to question, Stu, is why is this topic a thought-terminating cliche?
I've
Why
given
is
you
it?
a very good answer about why it is a very important topic, and you didn't even seem to want to address that. And then you turned around and said that I was calling you a person who was promoting genocide, and I didn't say that at
Rooster, if you're concerned with thought-terminating cliches, wouldn't it be a little concerning to assume the epistemological, ontological truth of the universe is a Middle Eastern man that created it 2,000 years ago? Don't you think that's a little bit thought-terminating? Wouldn't you have to
I
stop?
think it's silly to say things like that because I'm not saying a Middle Eastern man created the universe. What? I say God, like he created.
Did I misunderstood? Is Jesus not Palestinian?
So Jesus, before the incarnation, what existed as a person, the second person of the Trinity, right? So to say a Middle Eastern man created the universe,
Are the Holy
silly.
Spirit and Jesus and God not the same thing in your debate?
Right, but so I would
no, right. It's
I would
both.
love if you could find a Christian who phrases it that way, who says a Middle Eastern man
So
created.
he wasn't of
Because
Nazareth
it's
then,
concerning,
Rooster, you know, because
right?
he was
It's
kind of
concerning when you hear it that way.
When
wow, I anthropomorphize the entire universe. That's a little concerning.
When the universe was created, right? There was no such thing as a Middle Eastern man. That didn't exist yet, right?
Here we go, Logos. Here we go.
It's dangerous to believe that God did not create the universe. Very dangerous.
Agreed.
Okay. Is Jesus not God, John? Are they not the
In
same
the beginning, God.
Not for a blink of an eye.
In the earth.
No, I'm saying Jesus is God. I'm not saying Jesus isn't God. I'm just saying it's silly the way you like phrase it purposefully to make it sound silly, which I understand. That's what you're doing.
His
right?
divinity was not parted from his humanity, not for a blink of an eye. It's your own biblical verse. Jesus is God. A man is God. God is a man. God created the universe. A man created the universe.
I mean, you're being that's being extremely silly because you understand there was a time in history, right, before Jesus was incarnate, before the second person of the Trinity took on the substance of man, right? Fully man, yeah, he is, but that wasn't the state at the beginning of the universe, which you know, and you phrase it away to make it sound silly, and I understand why you do that.
It's not silly. I just phrase it to make it sound silly.
Yeah,
Why do you
before
hate
man
Hades
existed,
people?
Christ existed.
Why do you hate Hades people? Like they eat some falafel, they're good at arguing, they're doctors. Why are you doing this? Why do you hate Jews?
What are you talking about? I love Jews.
That
I
was
want
a
all
loaded question, by the way.
Yeah,
I want all Jews to be in heaven one day. Is that a hate? Does that sound like I hate them?
Only 144,000 of them.
Right. So then Stu comes up with the thing, and I'm just trying to get people's opinion. But then he's trying to make whatever.
He's quoting Revelation, man. It's in there. You can read it if you like.
I just think that this whole like pretense of I'm just trying to discuss opinions.
Only quoting Revelation, it's in there. There's 144,000 that are chosen. I don't know why it was only that specific number.
So why are you
I'm not talking about those that are judged after. I'm just talking that there's 144,000 that are handpicked for some particular reason. Nobody gives a reason as to the actual reason for that specific number of Jews. It's just 144,000.
Yeah, that's actually a Mormon type belief. Or
no, it's in Revelation.
Yeah, but
no, your interpretation. I'm saying
you understand that
Catholic interpretation.
Yeah, most Christians don't say there's only going to be 144,000 people or only 144,000.
I never said that. I'm talking about the first chosen, the 144,000, before the other stuff happened.
Oh, okay. All right, maybe I misunderstood. So, yeah, I think, Ray, when you say you think a Middle Eastern man created the universe, it's just like a silly, like you're saying it to sound silly, and yeah, I recognize.
Yeah, Rooster, maybe it's because Homo sapiens have a long history of anthropomorphizing the universe and understanding things through human actions, human desires, human nervous systems. You say God loves, you say God created, all of these words that are human words, and then you extrapolate them on top of the entire universe. That's why it's silly. It's very valid to call it silly, because it is silly. But we used to call lightning and thunder Zeus. We used to call love Aphrodite. We used to call war Ares. And now you're calling epistemic knowledge and ontological knowledge Jesus Christ and God and the Trinity and these other nonsense words. It is.
You don't even know that you exist, and you're talking about silly?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I can't.
I don't understand how
John is old. John is old. The brain.
Fallibilism.
Well,
After
Ray,
25,
how does John know that you don't know that you exist?
Ray told us
fallible. You don't even know about fallible you can know.
How do you know what
you guys
Ray means when he says he doesn't exist?
You guys are attacking the scientific method that brought you the audio technology that you're
Well, I
using
just
today. None of these
went right
scientists.
over your head. You appeal to fallibilism. Fallibilism is the knowledge, right? You're claiming lack of knowledge.
Oh my God, John. Oh.
Yeah, John, you just don't understand the science. I don't think you have a science background. Like, you need to study science a little.
Now it's a red herring, and an hobbit.
I don't think John knows what fallacies are either. Of course, we all knew that already, didn't we?
Rooster, are you 100% certain, without a doubt, that the sun is going to rise tomorrow?
Absolutely not. World could end next second.
So you don't know that the sun is going to rise tomorrow?
Absolutely not. Could end at any moment.
That's right.
But if someone asks you if you have knowledge on sunsets and sunrises, what would you say?
Yeah, sure, I have knowledge of sunsets and sunrises.
There you go.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Wait. Whoa. First of all, I said knowledge isn't really something that can really be defined.
Talking about a future event.
Things about it, and I said it's a consciousness of something. So yeah, I have consciousness of sunrise and sunsets.
We don't have knowledge of future events.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to make. It's almost like we have to make probabilistic assumptions on future events. Doesn't that seem like a handy way of handling the universe?
No, there's no probabilistic assumptions that the sun will rise tomorrow. It's simply a faith.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean by
past
faith?
history and do a statistical method, there's no probability that I could calculate the sun.
Wait,
That's
John,
right.
by faith, do you mean like an inference made based on past experience?
Yeah, it's not an inductive process that we have.
Wait, I'm asking you what you meant by faith when you said that it's on faith. What do you mean there?
I didn't say it's on faith. I said it
Yeah,
is
you did. You said it's faith.
I said
yeah. That means you're taking that the sun will rise tomorrow on faith. So what do you mean by that?
Used it in the way you misrepresented.
Well, I haven't misrepresented how you used it because I don't know how you used it, which is why I've just been continuously asking you what you mean by it because I don't know what you mean by it. So telling me that I'm misrepresenting what you mean by something that I don't even know what the fuck you mean by it, and that's why I keep asking you and you keep dodging, isn't going to help you out. So what do you mean by the word faith when you used it? Give me the definition that you were using.
I did use the word faith.
Yeah, and what did you mean when you used it? What did you mean when you used it? What did you mean when you used it? What did you mean when you used it?
So I said it's a faith. You said...
Yeah, what did you mean when you used that word? What did you mean by that word? Can you tell me what you meant by the word? What was the meaning in that term that you used?
Yeah.
And so you could either acknowledge that...
So you don't know what you meant by the word that you used. There's just no point to engage with.
By faith, or you could just pretend you never misrepresented me by saying I said it's on faith. I did not, sir. I said it is a faith that the sun will rise tomorrow. And what I mean by faith, in that sense, is not an inductive process, right? It is...
Telling me what you don't mean by the word doesn't tell me what you do mean by the word. Are you willing to tell me what you do mean by the word, or are you just going to tell me what you don't mean by the word?
I was literally telling you when you cut me off. Did you know that?
No, you were literally telling him what you didn't mean.
That's not true. I began by
Yeah,
saying
no, that
it
is true.
a
You said,
confidence.
when I say faith, what I don't mean is induction, but you didn't tell me what you do mean. I don't think you can, because I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about.
I literally
Just par for the
began by
course for
saying
John
it's
Lee.
not, right? And I began, and then I concluded to say it is a confidence. I was going to go on, but you cut me off.
I suspect you were going to go on with what you didn't mean. But you've taken this time now to not tell us what you mean.
I literally
Which is
said it is a
consistent with your...
confidence, okay? And I was going to elaborate.
Well, if you said it's a confidence, I missed you saying that.
So did I.
Like, hello? Because you cut me off.
No, well, you were going to say that, but you didn't because you were cut off.
No. Check the replay.
I was too busy.
It wasn't
we'll check.
You don't just need 3D printing. You need excellent quality, quick delivery, and the best quotes from industry leaders.
So when you wake up with your
employing the concept
the sun hasn't risen yet, you're praying to God on faith that it's going to rise, right? You're not making any probabilistic assumptions that it's going to.
I don't use the word on faith again. See, now you're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I just literally corrected Leo, and now you want to repeat what he's saying.
Wait, but John, what's the difference between having faith in X and believing X on faith? What's the difference between those?
The basis.
What do you mean by that?
When you're saying that someone believes on faith, you're saying that the basis itself is faith, which is redundant, which is begging the question.
What do you mean by basis? What are you talking about? I don't know what that means.
It is a redundant.
Well, I mean, you can finish, but it's just going to be gobbledygook because you're not explaining what you mean. So continuing to go on is just like me listening to you make noises.
You don't see this nonsense,
like you're just making mouth sounds right now.
I don't know what.
John, what do you mean by basis?
I literally was answering it, right? Literally. And then you guys are misrepresenting me.
It's irrelevant, but you're not answering it now.
Listen. Faith
I like how John thinks that we're misrepresenting what he's saying by asking what he means by the things that he's saying.
Literally, I made 3 attempts and you cut me off. Literally.
Are you attempting to tell us what you mean?
And then the pretension that I'm not telling you what it means when I've attempted to, and
you're still not doing.
Because every time I have, you cut me off, and so why should I persist in trying?
Lately, last couple times you're being cut off, if at all, for not telling us.
Because
just snibbling about how you were going to say something and were cut off.
First and foremost, the question is not what is a faith. The question is the misrepresentation of on faith, right? What is a faith, right? The difference is the basis. That's what he asked me, and I was in the process of answering how.
And we're still waiting for you to answer it. You're just talking about how you might answer it.
Listen, now you're interrupting me. This is
interrupting you, not answering the question.
And then you're saying that I'm not answering the question.
You're not. You're just telling us about what the question is.
The difference.
Okay, wait. Let's give John a minute.
No, you literally weren't.
Let's give John 1 minute. What's the difference between on faith and having in?
Thank you. The difference is on represents a basis. Is represents a predication, right? And so the difference is that the basis of it, to say that one's belief is based on faith, right, is a redundancy. The Christian religion is a faith-based religion, but the faith itself is not based upon faith. That's ridiculous. And so many atheists often say that you're believing on faith, which is a ridiculous notion to say that one's belief, the foundation, the basis, the reason for that belief is faith. And that's asinine, right? The reason someone believes has many, it is sometimes an inference, induction. Sometimes it's a basis but ultimately it's a confidence, right? It's an assurance. It's a trust. This is what faith represents, and sometimes one could understand it as a a confidence without evidence, right?
No way you
Basis
just define faith with synonyms of faith? Is that what you're doing?
So anyway,
You're very pathetic, John.
I provided the difference. Hopefully that's
So the Christian belief system is not based on faith. The Christian belief system is based on a variety of things that lead to faith, which can include induction, deduction, and just emotion. Is that what you're saying?
It could even include experience.
Yeah, that's not biblical, John. Biblically, you have to be based on faith.
100% false.
Blind like a child, childlike trust in God.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me this as a Christian that I'm biblically wrong? Is this
as someone who was an Orthodox deacon for 18 years, I'm telling you, you're absolutely
failed
wrong.
at Christianity. This is what you're saying.
Yeah, Christianity is a binary.
Yeah, that's a non sequitur.
People can telling me about
people can raise up considerations of
Christianity
Christianity without being Christian, John.
It's like listening to someone who went bankrupt teaching me how to become successful.
No, John, you're playing linguistic games. You're saying like an empiricist would never say that their empiricism is based on empiricism.
I never used the word empiricism, by the way.
Yeah, but it's an analogy, right?
That's
You're saying a faith-based believer would never say that their faith is based on faith. Thank you. We understand.
Believer? What? That's a nonsensical term.
Because believing is faith.
Only, hang on. A faith base is only applicable to the Christianity as a religion. Christianity is a faith-based religion. The faith of the Christian is not based upon faith. That's ridiculous.
Right. The faith of the Christian is based on nothing. God.
Yeah, so there's no basis for their faith.
I told you what it's based on, right? I did not say nothing.
Are you not citing secular things by saying induction and deduction and stuff like that? Doesn't that make it no longer faith?
What do you mean it makes it
No,
no
because
longer
that can't be proved by
faith. I already
science,
explained it
so
to you. Faith is a confidence, it's a trust, it's an assurance, right? It's a belief. These are not
is a belief.
These are not controversial statements. But what is ignorant is to say that it's based on faith, right? That's ignorant.
Matt, what kind of things
What's
are
the faith
proved
based
by
on?
science?
What's the faith based on?
Well, if you talk about inductive reasoning, laws of logic, things of that nature, you have to say that you actually have faith in them as well, because they can't be demonstrated by science. You just have to assume they exist.
Yeah, Christians love this linguistic game, but they don't ever talk about the effects of the faith. We can even.
A secular definition is a complete trust and confidence in someone.
I was worried.
That's exactly what I told them, Matt. They're not even listening at this.
So the question, so basically, we have to have complete trust and confidence in something like the laws of logic, the validity of inductive reasoning, the conformity of nature, the objective moral standards used in science. All of this stuff can't be proved by science, but we assume them, have faith that they exist when we do science.
Or Matt,
things of that nature.
Hear me out. We could use a scientific method and come up with nice probabilistic assumptions for things. How does that sound?
No, you've already actually presupposed all those things by using the scientific method. That's the point. You can't even do the scientific
imagine
method
if I said
without
it's based on faith. That science is based on faith, right?
Yeah, and
It's
actually it
based
is
upon
based on
confidence in the presuppositions and the veracity of them being true. The axioms of logic, the laws of thermodynamics, these are the uniformity. The list goes on of things that are taken as a faith, right? But
you can't just use language like this. They are probabilistically
No, he can.
assumed.
No, he can't. That's what he wants to do. It's his MO is to use word games.
There is no probabilistic.
This has been discussed many times.
William Lane
Uniformitarianism is not based upon probability. It's a presupposition. That is a confidence. It is a faith, whether you like the word or not.
May I quote the great doctor of philosophy, William Lane Craig? That was a question. I'm asking consent.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt. I don't see any objections.
William Lane Craig quotes, and actually I'm paraphrasing, so maybe it's not an exact quote. Philosophers of science in the 20th century came to realize that the whole scientific